Testing, one, two. Okay, it's there.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular Board of Trustees meeting. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Karsbeck.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy.
Here.
Trustee Hardy.
Yes.
Trustee Albrecht. Trustee Wing.
Here.
Trustee Ayers.
Here.
Trustee Kurtz.
Present.
All right, next up is citizen participation. This is a chance for anyone in the audience to speak to anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Do you have anyone signed up? All right, thank you. Appreciate it. We can move on now to consent agenda. Would trustees like anything removed from consent? Otherwise, is there a motion to?
Well, I do
Yeah,
have, I
okay.
do have one thing.
Which one would you like removed?
The Handy Ditch Company.
All right, let's pass consent. Is there minus item F? Is there a motion to approve the consent minus item F?
I'll move to pass consent agenda A through E,
All
with the
right,
exception of F.
Second?
all right. And trustee Wing has seconded. Clerk, can we roll call vote on that?
Trustee Wing.
Yes.
Trustee Hardy.
Yes.
Trustee Ayers.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Kurtz.
Yes.
And Mayor Karsbeck.
Yes. All right, items removed from consent will be considered next. Trustee Wing?
Yeah, just a quick question on that. So as we buy those shares, my question is, not knowing all the intricacies of water and how it works, is all the infrastructure already in place so we get to share just our percentage of that water that we may already be using increases? Is that how that works?
Yeah, for all intents and purposes. So Handy Ditch Company water, the town has been kind of integrally connected to the Handy Ditch system for 100 years. And so a lot of our water can come through that system and does come through that system. So we're just adding to the amount of water we can take. Love and Lake and Ditch is primarily our non-potable supply, and that's the lake that's catty-corner to the rec center.
Right.
And then we can use existing infrastructure to distribute that water to irrigation locations.
Because Handy Ditch Company, I think, has multiple reservoirs, or at least holding
Mhm.
ponds, don't
That's
they?
true.
Okay, thank you then. Those are my
Yep.
questions.
All right, thank you. Any other, is that, you're good?
Yes, thank you.
All right, is there a motion to approve item F of the consent?
Motion to approve.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Wing's moved on that. Trustee Kirk has seconded. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote?
Trustee Hardy.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Wing.
Yes.
Trustee Kurtz.
Yes.
Trustee Ayers.
Yes.
Mayor Karsbeck.
Yes. All right, thank you. We can move now on now to our regular agenda, and we'll start out with the Ad Sortium Media Tele Award presentation, and we have our Economic Development Director, Walt Elish here.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. I'm here with some exciting news. For those of you who may not know, every year we host the Business Appreciation Breakfast in May during Small Business Appreciation Week. And we've had it hosted now for 5 years. For those 5 years, I and Ben Price, who's here, have produced a video that we presented. About 2 to 3 to 4 minute video. It's been very well received. It's our way of saying thank you to the businesses in Berthoud for making an investment, employing people, and just being located in our community. But I'm pleased to say, I thought they're all very good, and they're all on the website. But the 2023 video was exceptional. We received a lot of positive comments about that video in particular. And after the meeting and after receiving all those comments, Ben and I got together and we thought, we should maybe submit that for some sort of award. Ben took it upon himself. He knew about the Tele Award program, and he submitted it. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Ben Price of Ad Sortium Media to discuss the program, the award, and present to us the Tele Award. Ben?
All right. So, this day. Good evening, town trustees. My name is Ben Price, and I own Ad Sortium Media. Many of you know me, or at least of me, and the work that I've created for the town and community, businesses over the last 10 years for the town, and working with specifically the town of Berthoud for the last 4. I'm here today to convey to you some really good news. I know you guys always want to hear good news. And to give a public shout out of recognition to a member of town staff and to proudly make a presentation as a result of their efforts and our partnership on behalf of the town. As you know, the town of Berthoud, it's kind of somewhat repetitive, but I feel it's important to say it again. The town of Berthoud hosts a business appreciation breakfast every year, and at that event, an opening video is presented to all of the attendees. The video that was created for the 2023 breakfast highlighted all the various small and large businesses that call Berthoud home, and it told the story of how Berthoud businesses are part of a community that impacts the world. And it presented a sampling of surprising products and services that originate in this town and which are used by and benefit people all across the globe. If you'll indulge me for about 3 minutes, if you haven't seen the video, I'd like to play it for you now, and so you can see what this looks like. Is it touch?
No, you'll need to use the touchpad and then go ahead and press play.
A town's quality of life is determined by the businesses who operate there and keep life going. We welcome and celebrate every new and existing business that calls Berthoud home. They provide the essential, sometimes hidden products and services we use every day and empower us, in turn, to provide the same benefit to others. They feed us, caffeinate us, provide us a space to unwind or a venue for meetings and special events, and they provide a focus for family time at home. Berthoud businesses provide the maintenance necessary to keep you safely on the road and a space for you to do the same for yourself. These unsung heroes are the foundation of the business community. Their everyday presence and involvement allows residents to come together and enjoy all the benefits of living in a small town. The business community of Berthoud is also populated with companies whose reach goes far outside the town's limits. In fact, when you leave town, there's a good chance the town's business community is a part of that journey. Berthoud businesses create radar and communications equipment deployed around the world and in space. And they even design and build the rocket motors that power space exploration. They import beads and pendants from around the world and redistribute them to jewelry crafters across the U.S. and abroad. And they empower global brands to reduce carbon emissions through biosustainable inks and pigments. Our local businesses support everyday leisure activities and even in-flight entertainment systems, and they enable town residents to reduce plastics use, helping to save the planet one refill at a time. They build the devices that help with your morning shave, that protect your mobile electronics, and that bring medical therapies to healthcare patients worldwide. They facilitate major construction projects through materials handling and movement, and they enable exploration and enjoyment of the great outdoors. Our community of entrepreneurs impacts not just the local residents of Berthoud. They drive the people and technologies that play a varied and essential part in the world economy. In short, life is better because of our businesses, and we appreciate every one of them. Berthoud businesses are the backbone of this community. They're the power of creativity and entrepreneurism and the inspiration for greater things still to come. This is your community, and it doesn't matter if your business is big or small. What matters is that you are a part of it. Every business contributes in their own way to the success of the whole. It's a synergy of operations, and the role you play, the service you provide, the products you make are all essential to that success. Thank you, Berthoud businesses, for your impact on the world.
I hope you'll all agree that after watching this video, a resident of Berthoud would walk a little bit taller. I can certainly say for myself that the discovery process in writing and producing this video left me a bit awestruck by the reach and impact that Berthoud has on this world. And as a side, I think, again, it's one of those things that makes everyone really proud to be here, especially if you didn't know that these things are going on. As Walt said, after the video was completed, Walt and I discussed the feasibility of entering what we had made into a competition. And I want to say that I've been in the video business for over 4 decades, and I've participated in a number of competitions. And I can assure you that there certainly exists some pay-to-play competitions. If you give them money, they will absolutely give you an award. And then there are others that truly mean something when you submit your work and earn that recognition. And so if this video were to be entered in a competition, I wanted any recognition that we received to actually mean something. And so I took a calculated risk and submitted the video to the Telly Awards. And now if you're not familiar with the Telly Awards, where the Oscars specifically represent motion picture film works and the Emmys represent network television productions, the Telly Awards is the premier award honoring video and television for basically everything else. It was established in 1979, and the Telly Awards annually receives over 13,000 entries from all over the world. Winners in the competition are selected for recognition at the bronze, silver, or gold level based on excellence in the categories of branded content, commercials and marketing, immersive and mixed reality, non-broadcast, which is what ours was entered in, online and television services, show and segments, and social media. Past winners for the Tellys include Adult Swim, Adobe, BET Networks, BritBox, CNN, Walt Disney, ESPN, HBO, Microsoft, NASA, National Geographic, Paramount, and even the Smithsonian Museum. So that's the playing field that we're working here in. This is the big leagues, where actually a low-budget production in branded content categories, anything that costs less than $100,000 to produce. So yeah, earning recognition from this competition or even a nomination is something to be really proud of. And I'm really proud to report that the video Walt and I made for the town of Berthoud not only received a nomination for an award, but earned a recognition for a Telly. So Walt, would you come up and join me real quick? The 2023 Berthoud Business Appreciation Breakfast video that we made earned a Silver Telly Award in the category of non-broadcast and placed alongside works for the likes of Delta Airlines, the National Aquarium, the Florida Department of Transportation, Columbia Pictures, and the United States Golf Association. That's who we came along with. And so it is therefore my honor to share this award and provide public recognition with a Silver Telly Award to Walt and Mayor Karspek, if you'd like to come up as well.
Oh, sure, on behalf of the board.
On behalf of the board and the town, because this is the town too. For support of the town.
Glad you didn't interview me, I would have thanked you.
So this is the Telly Award. And so.
All right.
Photographer in the room.
All right, so before I conclude my presentation, I feel it's important to let you know who some of the gold winners were that placed ahead of us, as well as who some of the bronze winners were that we placed ahead of. For starters, there were only 13 gold winners in our category that placed ahead of us. And these winners included Al Jazeera, City of Atlanta, the Draper Richards Kaplan Foundation, probably heard of that before, the Tall Ship Providence Foundation, which is, I believe, funded by the United States Navy, and the Maine Office of Tourism. These videos produced by these gold winners were impeccable, and they completely deserve that award. But who were some of the organizations that we beat? And I'm pretty sure you've heard of them too. They include Hewlett-Packard, Samsung, OregonDonor.gov, the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, and the Prince William Department of Economic Development. Kind of nice. I don't know about everybody else, but it feels really nice to place ahead of a company like, let's say, Hewlett-Packard, who the same year our video was produced, spent over $600 million on advertising and outreach alone, and we beat them. Ba-boom. So thank you, town trustees, for your time this evening, and thank you to Walt. Walt, we made something special, and I do appreciate and value the partnership and collaboration that we've done with the town and the town. You guys are amazing. I know we're already proud to be a part of the Berthoud community, and it's nice to have that feeling recognized and validated in this manner. That's all I've got for you tonight. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
you. Yeah, that's amazing.
Do we have this on our website?
The video, but not the award yet. This is
The
first-
video, but the
okay.
video is out there?
Yes.
It's on our website.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, congrats.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Super
It's
cool.
really national level. Okay, next up, and thank you, you guys came out in force tonight. Looks like we have, the Berthoud Golden Links. It's a funding request. Do we have Nancy Weaver here tonight? Or do we have anyone to present?
I'm not
Okay.
speaking,
Hi,
but
Nancy.
Carol Miser speaking.
Okay, great. Kara Meiser. Great. If you could come to the podium here, welcome. Thank you.
Wow, that's a hard act to follow. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Carol Meiser. In particular, I'm speaking on behalf of all of the seniors of Berthoud, but also on behalf of all of the residents of Berthoud who feel we could use a community center again. The community center and the seniors shared a space that included a commercial kitchen in the fire department. The seniors used to get together there for coffee, birthday lunches, fundraisers, yoga, and so forth until a couple of years ago. The fire department also rented out that space for dances, birthday parties, anniversary celebrations, and so forth, of which we took advantage also. However, the fire department grew and they needed the space. The Cornerstone Church was gracious enough to invite us to use a space at their restaurant to get together for coffee, food, and chair yoga. At this time, we are very happy to be able to meet there and to continue to meet there. Even though our numbers dwindled at the beginning, they have now tripled thanks to word of mouth and our posting on Berthoud Community website. We are now averaging at least 30 to 40 individuals each Thursday morning. We invite anyone who would like to join our group. Age is not counted. We have great discussions, speakers on various subjects, and have taken short excursions. I think you may have a list of some of that. All of these have been a great asset to our group. As you know, we no longer do fundraisers. However, we would like some funding to continue with our group. Older folks are not that great of drivers, and it's best to rent a bus and have everyone corralled together. That's why we are before you requesting that the city help us with some of those expenses. We do fine with jaunts to local places. However, we are asking for assistance to pay for transportation, like maybe a big bus for longer excursions for our large group. The Berthoud seniors have a nonprofit standing under the name of Berthoud Golden Links. Our only sources of income are from Larimer County and a very small amount of tax refund from Hayes Market for grocery receipts, which we seniors save and return to them. In addition, the lady that we consider our leader will soon be retiring soon. She has taken no salary all these years and has furnished all needed office supplies. We realize that most of the towns around us have their own community senior center that we could utilize, but we feel that we would rather not drive that far, and since the senior population of Berthoud is now over 25% and growing, we are hopefully looking forward to having our own community senior center that will accommodate the needs of all of the Berthoud residents. Thank you.
I don't know, did you say?
Would you like, you don't have to.
No, I was just gonna answer questions, if
Okay.
there were any questions.
Thank
We
you.
didn't know if you would
So
have.
to
any
clarify,
questions.
looks like, it's a $20,000 request.
That's what we were
Yeah, okay.
trying for, yeah.
Okay, and, trustees, do we have any questions right off the bat here?
I have a couple.
Yeah, trustee Wynn?
So I didn't see in this information specifically what the funds are to be used for. Did I miss that?
For,
Go ahead.
yeah, just for our activities, we do have yoga, chair yoga for seniors, and we do that once a week, and we do have to pay somebody, but she's kind enough to come to, where we're meeting at the church, so she comes there and we do chair yoga there.
And then transportation for
Yeah, and then when we take excursions or like, kind of like, with the kids, field trips for us, we sometimes need money for transportation.
Would it be too much to ask for a budget or some type of accounting of specifically where you think the funds would go?
No, it wouldn't be too much. We just haven't, we were just wanting to get on your radar as far as we're still trying to be a group and we still have our nonprofit designation. And so we do have, a few expenses like the post office box and the tax return we have to file every year and those kind of things. And since we aren't having any fundraisers anymore because we have no place to do it, those, we don't have.
But is your intent to continue to have your meetings where you're having them now?
As long as they're kind
Until we
enough
get
to
it
let
some-
us stay there. We have no other place, so they offered, there was no other place in town that was able to offer
I
us
guess
a
that's why
place.
we're hoping that the city will eventually, soon, get a
Maybe get a-
community center, senior center.
Senior
We'll-
center, community center, because we do have, one of our gals does do, emails or texts out to members, every week, and she is also on the Berthoud community page, and she puts the information of all the things we do. We have a lot of speakers. Normally, the speakers don't charge us anything, we have politicians this time of year, and we have authors and just really an assortment. We had the code enforcement last week came and talked to us. Oh, well, you have the list.
Yeah, we have a list.
I'm
in-
sorry,
No,
you
it's
have
okay.
the list of what we do, well, the people we've had.
I have an email here that did not get into the packet, and that's on me, but it says the request here, you guys want to go to trip to Fort Collins to see the Budweiser Clydesdales, Georgetown Train Again, Celestial Seasonings, the Gardens at CSU in Fort Collins and others. So
Right.
not necessarily tonight a community center request, but just an encouragement for us to keep going.
Right,
Right,
just
and
to
then-
keep us going until.
Sure, and then for
a
you guys right
community
now.
center, yeah, senior
And when we
center
talked
shows up.
earlier, it's kind of just come to the board, make a formal request, and then if we approve, it'd be kind of working with staff. Is that correct? In
I
district,
think
is that
that's
how you feel?
yeah, I think the appropriate next step would be, if this is something you want to direct us to work with them together on, I think it seems practical to me, the support that we provide to other organizations like the Historical Society, to RAFT and others is done via contract. So we contract with them to provide services that the town could, but either can't or doesn't want to provide. So like, our rec department could run the museum, but there is an existing museum in place with a great set of motivated volunteers. So we contract with them to provide that historical service. Historical preservation service, they provide a lot of other services to the town, reviewing applications for us and things like that. We pay them under contract to do that. I would see this would need to be a very similar kind of arrangement where we might be contracting with Golden Links to provide senior activities that we may otherwise do through the rec center. We have some senior activities there, and we haven't expanded upon those because of some other good groups like Golden Links already operating in town, and we don't want to take away from what they're doing. And so we could expand our offerings, so to speak, by contracting them to provide that service. Does that make sense? And so we need to kind of work out what that agreement looks like, what services we're offering, or what services they are offering that we'd be paying for on behalf of the community, and under what kind of requirements. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Similar in fashion to all the other agreements that we have.
And thank you. And for like the BATS shuttle, which actually was started by Golden Links in the early 90s, could we work out a deal somehow to use that for some of these transportation things?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are the kinds of things that we could include in that agreement, when and how that got done. Our BATS bus has kind of a regular schedule, but if we knew, 4 times a year or something, there were activities planned that we were gonna use that BATS bus and schedule a driver for. We only have 2 drivers for the whole service, so, those are things we could work out via that agreement as well.
Could even lease the VMW space. space and kill two birds with one stone.
That's true.
May I speak?
Yes, Nancy, if you could come to the front for the mic.
Brings tears to my eyes to come up here, guys.
That's all right.
Do
you mind stating your name?
We started out with 6 people and coming for coffee. Now we have over 30. I do put something on for the community. I brought in speakers. Every Thursday, we have a speaker. They have not charged us. We have 2 writers from Berthoud that we have on the schedule. We have Barbara Bennett from the Larimer County Scam thing that's coming to talk to us. We invite school people who are running for office, or any of you guys that are running for office. You're more than welcome to come have a coffee with us. We are losing our leader. She hasn't been paid. If we're going to continue, we might need somebody that's paid. Although all of us say we'll do it. We'll keep it together. So
Thank you.
I don't mind saying we would like, next year we hear the Clydesdales are going to be in Fort Collins. We would like to have transportation to go to Fort Collins. We'll be more than glad to give you a bill of how much it would cost us to take a bus, if you could help us out.
Yeah, and thank you. And I think that would be the point of, if we approve of this, would be meeting with staff, and we could even maybe have a couple trustees or something, and kind of work out those details, get some receipts and some ideas.
And I did talk to Bats. Bats said they would not take us to Boulder. And some man responded, and I'm sorry I did not bring the letter. He said, if you open it up to the rec center, we'll make transportation for you.
I think the idea probably he was thinking of if folks maybe of the age of Golden Links, but it sounds like it doesn't have to be, but opening it up to the community in general.
Okay, it'll only take 20 people to go to Celestial Seasonings at one time, and it costs $5 a piece. We can pay our own $5 a piece, but we need transportation. Clydesdales, we went to the museum, and the Bats did take us to the museum in Loveland. We're more than happy. I'll do anything to keep this group together.
Thank you, Nancy. I can open it up for a public comment. Don't feel obligated to, but if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this, if you could please come to the front.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a few more
Oh,
questions.
please, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
From a representative from the group, if they'd be willing.
Yeah,
Sure,
could we have someone come up to the
absolutely,
front?
please.
Thanks.
Sorry about
I
that.
just cut Sean off, so.
Oh, that's okay.
It's all right.
I just had a few additional questions. What is the current financial standing of the group, if you feel comfortable sharing that with us?
You know, the treasurer was not able to come tonight, and
Okay.
I didn't get that information. Oh.
We
Barb?
recently got a check for $2,500 from Larimer County. We do have some money in our account right now. We do know, I don't know exactly the amount, but we do have some money in our bank account. So we're not destitute.
Okay, and beyond that, regarding kind of the bus trips and stuff, is there an interest from your group to do kind of longer trips elsewhere in Colorado with like a tour bus or something?
We want to go to
akin
Georgetown again and ride the train in the fall.
Okay.
We did it 2 years ago when we were over at the fire department.
Mhm.
And these are a lot of new people that did not go
Mhm.
3 years ago, and they want to go again.
And I was gonna also bring up, is it a preference by the group to run those bus trips in-house with your organization, or would it be more of a preference if the rec department kind of handled that, utilizing your input and kind of booking buses or something for that?
I wouldn't care if the rec department handled it. That's not a
Okay.
problem. I would be more responsible for my group.
Mhm.
I will continue to be responsible for my group.
Okay. And then one more question, regarding your current space, are you being charged any kind of rent for that, or
I'm sorry.
are you being charged any kind of rent?
No,
or
we give
using the
donations.
Space fee? Okay. That's all I've got, sorry. Just wanted to get
No,
those
they
out.
were kind enough to offer. to
They
use
offered it.
Their church space for us.
And we have grown so much. We were in one area. We grew so much. Now we're in the sanctuary. And we keep growing.
And we haven't really planned any other excursions because we didn't have a way, we didn't think to go forward for financing them or, get everybody up and then how would we do it?
I put
Because-
I'm sorry. I put something on Berthoud Community every Thursday, and they all call me or text me, can I come? We do not put an age on you. It started out as a senior center. We don't care what age you are. If you want to come join us, join us. All you have to pay is $1 for a cup of coffee, and you drink as much as you want. Can you go someplace else and have a cup of coffee for $1? And Miranda fixes our lunches, our birthday lunches every month for $7.
I just wanted to add that, in the past, of course, we were able to do fundraisers and that, so we've never asked for any money, I don't think ever, since we've been an organization. It's just now that we don't have any space, we have no way to do it. So, that's basically it. So we didn't really know what we were doing up here, so.
No, that's
all right.
great.
Because
That's a good
There's a
we've
question.
lot of
always,
good
we've always
clarification.
had our fundraisers and had enough, we made enough money to do what we needed to do.
Mhm.
But now we have no space to do it, so we came to you
Well,
guys.
Well, Eleanor told us at the last meeting that she is retiring, and we'll take it over. We'll keep it going. And we don't need a salary. But we need money with transportation.
All right. Do
Thank
we have
you,
other
ladies.
questions? Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, guys.
We can go through, like trustee deliberation on this and questions with staff, but, would anyone like to speak to this before we do? Okay. To the board here, do we have any questions for staff or, thoughts?
I just would reiterate, if we can get a detailed, what do they really need?
Mhm.
And then they can work with staff on
I think it's a great idea.
helping those goals.
That way they, kind of.
I did have a question. Yeah, I was just wondering, and maybe this has been discussed already, I wasn't aware, but the need for a space, is there a space that the town has that can be worked out as part of an offering of sorts? I know that the rec center has a lot of programming and it's probably at capacity, but I'm just wondering if there's anything else. I know our staff is overflowing into annex spaces as well, but I was just curious.
I understand that staff had conversations with folks from the group, maybe a couple of years ago
Yeah,
now. I think it was when the fire district was transitioning them out of the old facility there on
Yeah.
Welch. We offered some space that we have, didn't work for them for a couple different reasons, I think.
gotcha.
I can't think of much else that we have other than what we've offered previously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted a little background on that, yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem.
This would be for Administrator Kirk. Is there a preference from you or staff on managing the bus kind of operation for like these tours? Because I certainly do see a recreational need for these kind of trips to be offered by the town. Is there a preference on that?
There's no preference per se, so, like I mentioned, we have 2 drivers that run our BAT system. We have some kind of fixed days that we go to Loveland. We don't go to Longmont anymore because we really only had 1 rider that was going to Longmont previously. So we do trips to Loveland every day in the morning, and then we do trips in the afternoon a couple days a week.
Mhm.
And the rest of the time, the trips are all local within the Berthoud town limits, and they're done by appointment, folks calling. So we would need to schedule those far in advance. We haven't gone outside of kind of that normal service territory, if we could look at it that way, outside of the town limits, and then to Loveland for, like we would any other time. Although we have taken senior groups to like the Candlelight Theater via our rec department in Loveland, and we've used buses to do that. So, it's certainly something we can do. I don't know that there's a strong preference. Some of it depends on scheduling and driver availability and, if the activity is on the weekend or in the evenings, can we get a driver that's available? In some cases, it may be easier to just contract and have a transportation service come and handle that was paid for via the. So, I think there's a lot of different ways to handle it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Is there anything else? We all feeling pretty good?
I think there was a public comment.
Okay, if
I
you,
just wanted to
if you
speak.
could come to the front here, since it's a public
Sure.
comment, if you could state your name and address.
Yes, Amber Schneider,
Thank you.
524 Redwood Circle
Thank you.
here in Berthoud. I just want to support the seniors. I have been to quite a few of their meetings and worked with them on a lot of this stuff. And it's been awesome, even though I'm not quite there, to be welcomed into that group and be supported by that group. And anything you guys can do in the future to support that and keep that together and work with them is awesome. And I would ask that, you know, as a top priority for working with them. And just as a joke, they are the biggest voting population in Berthoud too. So it's good to keep them happy.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Schneider. All right, we all feeling supportive of having this conversation, and we're staff with Golden Links, and then you'd obviously come back, and that would be a formal vote, right?
Yeah, I think, again, similar to our other arrangements, we would prepare a contract. We have kind of a standard contract form that we've used for the other entities that we work with. And then we put together a little scope of work that says these are the things that the town is paying for. In some cases, those are very specific, and then in some cases, they're kind of more broadly defined. You know, senior activities and programs, open to the community, you know, trips 4 times a year in consultation with town staff, things like that, we would define as part of that scope and bring that back to you for a formal vote and approval.
We all supportive of this?
Yeah, I would agree with Trustee Wing here. I'd love to see a formal breakdown of kind of the expenses. I'd love to see kind of a brainstorming session with these folks and our rec department kind of getting together on the trip aspect of things. And then maybe the last component would be just, I'd love to hear from you guys again and where your needs are being met or not met. So I'd love to see you guys here a lot more often, so. But I'm very supportive of this.
And just to tag on that, I'm not aware of all the organizations within the town, but I would believe that at some point there's synergies that can be had with spaces and other groups where we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone and with various things. And again, I'm ignorant to all of the needs of the town, but it would seem, the small things that I have heard, there seems to be a number of groups where really there's an opportunity to share some resources.
We've been brainstorming some ideas that, kind of specific to exactly that idea, especially following the H&S presentation at the last meeting, some, I hope, creative solutions to be able to help that move forward, but also to create new space for organizations like Golden Links and others.
Great, so I don't know if we need to formally vote on that. Sounds like staff's got pretty crisp.
Good direction, yep.
Okay.
Yep, we can, and for us, we'll just, we just need to know the right person to coordinate with.
Nancy, would you, oh,
Nancy.
you're right there. Will you please reach out to
I
Administrator
think
Craig?
I have Nancy's contact
Okay.
information, so if Nancy's the right
Everybody
person-
knows me, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
That's
my
all right.
timer's going on.
What we'd like to do, and we talked about, and we talked with you, Will, if we could find a bus and find out how much they would charge us to go to Georgetown, we want to do that in early fall, before the weather gets bad. Could you look at it?
I think that's what this conversation's gonna be about.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do have a member of our group, but she's not here today, I don't think, that is very computer literate. The rest of us are barely there.
You know social media, I know you.
I can deal with children, I have a hard time dealing with adults.
All right, yeah, that's what this conversation would be about, is kind of hashing out those details.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
reach
you.
out.
All right, great. Thank you all for coming in on that tonight. Golden Links is a great organization. Okay, let's move on now to, we got the R2J School District bond presentation. We have a rep, okay. I'm sorry, sir, I forget your name, but you're Finance Director.
Gordon Jones.
Thank you, Gordon.
I'll introduce myself in just a second.
Mr. Mayor, Board Trustees,
Gordon Jones, Chief Financial Officer for Thompson School District. I appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you tonight. Joining me is our Assistant Superintendent of Operations, Mr. Todd Piccone. He'll be glad to answer any questions that I don't elaborate on fully in the presentation. First of all, congratulations on the first award that was presented to the town of Berthoud tonight. What a great product. Especially pleasing to me is to see the images of Thompson School District being represented on that as well. We take great pride in being an integral part of the community, and it's great to see us included in that. So I don't see the gentleman that was here before, but hopefully he'll get my thanks as well. So what I come to you tonight is to provide an update on actions that our board took last Wednesday, which was calling the ballot question of two initiatives. A bond initiative, a $220 million bond initiative, and a $13 million special levy, mill levy essentially. It's incumbent on me to let you know that once the board calls the ballot question, we as staff serve or fall under the Fair Campaign Practices Act, the rules, requirements of that, which means when we are on taxpayer time, we cannot advocate for nor against any ballot measure that is out there. So the intent of the presentation tonight is to give you factual information that is associated with these two potential programs that are intended to be on the November 5th ballot. So first, just some demographics in the district. I'm assuming that slide is up for everybody.
Not yet.
I apologize.
Okay, there we go.
Perfect, because as the young lady said before, I'm not very computer literate either. I always need assistance with this. So some demographics of the district, 30 schools, about 2,200 employees, just over 15,000 students in the district, a district that covers 362 square miles, so a large area. I think it's important to note that the district is not just Loveland, it's not just Berthoud. We have also portions of Windsor, Fort Collins, and Johnstown, so 5 municipalities that fall under within the Thompson School District boundaries as well. We have about 2.5 million square feet of building space that is administered to by the district. And really, most importantly, in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a graduation rate of 91.1%. We are anxiously awaiting some additional testing data that was completed last spring. That hasn't been released by the state yet. We expect that this week, but that is an important number, certainly to Dr. Schaefer, our superintendent, and our Board of Education in continuing to drive that number up as well. And in last year's class of 2024, $19.3 million of scholarships that were awarded to graduates of Thompson School District. So providing some information on the bond. This was a process started over 2 years ago with the master planning committee that we have within the district, with conversations with schools, with staff, in starting to formulate a huge database of facility needs. You saw the millions of square feet that we have. There's needs in those facilities as well. So there were conversations that took place. Really defining the options and gathering community input took place in the last year to define what those priorities may be. And then most recently, May through August, as you can see, finalizing the proposed investments of what those items could potentially be. This is just a brief graphic that shows you the 4 main buckets, if you will, of where the items are. We'll talk about more of these in a bit more detail, but you can see educational enhancements at $78 million, growth at $74 million, maintenance at $58 million, and safety and security at $10 million. for a total of $220 million bond package. So educational enhancements, you'll see there was polling that was done throughout the district last spring by Magellan Strategies. And two of the items that polled very well with the community were the Career Technical Education, or CTE, programs. We house those at the TCC, or Thompson Career Campus, which was a repurposed elementary school in Loveland that's open to all students in the district. Transportation provided for those students to get to the campus to take those career and technical education type classes. The other item that was polled very well in the spring was air conditioning, cooling, general environmental improvements to the air quality. That had a level of interest, and if you would have spoken with anybody in the district the last couple of weeks, that would have had equally as high, or if not higher, interest as well. So here you can see some of the items. The pictures on the right are the Thompson Career Campus and what that facility looks like. The middle picture is CTE programs, an example of CTE programs that we have. Various AC projects throughout the district that would be addressed with this potential bond package. And then program enhancements, which are just improvements to the classrooms that we have. There you can see an example of, I think that's circa 1973 approximately, but some of the enhancements that could be made to within the schools. Next is growth needs. While it would be handy within a school district, and if all you have to do is turn on the news and see challenges that districts have across the state, if we could pick up schools where we have aging out communities and drop those schools where we have growing communities, that would be beneficial. Unfortunately, that's not possible to do. So the growth needs that we have, primarily in the Berthoud area specifically, this is the fastest growing part of the district, and we know there's a need for 250 to 300 seats over the next 4 to 6 years that we need to have. So in this package of $74 million are significant enhancements to the three of the 4 schools in Berthoud. There you can see Turner Middle School, Ivy Stockwell Elementary, and Berthoud Elementary. Each of these schools would receive significant remodel enhancements, as well as additions added to the schools. We're fortunate with the landscape or land footprints that we have at those facilities to have the ability to add on to those facilities. So that would be the intended use of that to address the growth needs in Berthoud. We also have maintenance needs. Sorry, let me back up 1 second. I'd be remiss if I did not mention that those significant remodels would include 100% air conditioning in those 3 facilities as well. So that also is a priority that we saw through polling from the Magellan Strategies. So that would be included in each one of these 3 buildings as well, included in that total. Maintenance needs, the average age of buildings in the Thompson School District is about 50 years old. We have buildings that are 2 or 3 years old. We have buildings that are 103 years old. So you can see here just some examples of projects that would be undertaken. Again, from a HVAC unit on a roof to what theoretically is tennis courts at Mountain View High School that are unplayable right now. You can see Turner Middle School in the top right with some roofing issues and tile abatement, asbestos abatement in tiles that we have in some of our schools. So there is a extensive list that's been developed of the maintenance needs. This would address the majority of the high priority needs, but not the level 2, 3, 4 maintenance needs that are there in the district. Security needs is about a $10 million item, and it primarily has to do with secure vestibules. And for those that aren't aware, a secure vestibule is entering through one door, having to be card accessed or buzzed into one area, and then have another set of doors before you get buzzed into the school building itself. So that's the secure vestibule. This is one particular building in Loveland, Bill Reed Middle School. You can see a beautiful building, a historic building, but the entrance to that is very challenging to put a secure vestibule in. So this gives, the rendering shows one potential option of moving the administrative offices, which are on the second floor, down to the first floor, and taking those classrooms and replacing the administrative offices on the second floor with classrooms. This also would include some enhancements to the safety and security system, the card access, the video cameras that we have from a safety and security standpoint in the district as well. So to recap, it's the same graphic we saw before on the left. Most important on this slide is the ability to scan that QR code. That will take you to our Thompson School District website, tsd.org. And then up at the top, there is a link for bond program. And anybody that has an interest can click on that and scroll down the page. There's a tool that's been developed that anybody can click on. It will have a drop-down menu that has every building in the district, every school building that we have, and what is intended in these 4 categories for that particular building. So how many dollars are tentatively planned for each building in the district? It also has some demographics about the building or facts about the building, year of construction, age of the building, capacity, current enrollment, items like that on any school in the district. So the taxpayers or the community can look and see what those items are. Also included on that site is a preliminary tax calculator where somebody can put in the value of their particular home, and it will calculate what the estimated tax obligation would be for both of these initiatives, both the bond and the mill levy override or the special levy that's being proposed. We know that the legislature is meeting right now in their second special session of the year, with property tax being a key item that they are debating and looking to make some changes to. The calculator that is there with the proposed changes that the legislature is talking about would be reduced from the amounts that are showing there. So the calculator is based on current law. That's the best indicator that we have now, but likely would be reduced from what is shown there. Now we shift gears a little bit from the bond initiative, that $220 million package, to a $13 million official title being debt-free schools. It's a special levy. It operates very similar to a mill levy override, but it's 2 separate sections of state statute, 2 different laws that allow for this to happen. And it's very prescriptive on what these dollars can be spent on. You can see those 3 categories of maintenance, capital construction, and new and upgraded technology. Any funds raised from this special levy has to go to those items that are currently budgeted for in the school district budget. What it allows is the freeing up of those dollars that are currently budgeted for those categories in the budget to be used for a variety of other things. Some of the key items that have been discussed are, out of the $13 million, a $10 million enhancement for that's available for salaries and benefits for the district to remain a competitive employer in northern Colorado with the recruitment and retainment of staff. The other items, there's some safety and security possibilities. There are some IT-related items that would be included in that $13 million as well. So with that, that is a very rapid-fire update. And again, I have to stress strenuously, hopefully there was no, that was factual information that was provided. This is what is planned by the board. Should either or both of these initiatives receive a favorable vote from the public on November 5th. I'd be glad to answer any questions that the trustees may have, or Mr. Piccone would be thrilled to answer any as well.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Questions?
I do have a few. I probably just missed it on my part, but on that last special levy slide, you had a kind of like a unit tax increase per $100,000 home. And so that was like $26 a year for the special levy. What would it be for the bond, just out of
It's
curiosity?
comparable for the bond.
It's comparable
So
for
for the two combined,
Yeah.
is about a between 6 and 7 mil increase. So from a mill levy rate perspective,
Okay.
that's what it would be. It gets a little bit complicated doing the math on what the per 100,000 is. That's a common measurement that you'll see with a lot of municipalities that are
It's just the
requesting.
assessed value.
Because, people can, but with current law, it's the value of the home as determined by the county assessors minus 55,000 times the assessment rate, which is being debated as we speak
Sure.
at the Capitol. So again, under current law that was passed in the latest legislative session, the latest regular legislative session last May, Senate Bill 24-233 details what those assessment rates, what the credit on each residential property is. That's what was used to create those calculators. So they're still subject to change, but it's likely that any future law would be less expensive than current law. Might be the best way I can say that.
Gotcha, cool. Well, I appreciate that. So I think by rough math, I know you're sticking to facts, so this rough math, it's probably like $250 a year for a $500,000 house for that.
That is a fair assessment or
Fair
a
property.
calculation, yes.
Being a father of somebody in TSD, that seems reasonable. Again, you're expressing facts, I'll express a little opinion there. The other question that I had, and just because I do long-term planning, for water and utilities, thinking down the road, so a lot of investment, it looks like in Ivy and in Turner and in Berthoud Elementary. So obviously there's one other school that wasn't mentioned. So and could you provide a little bit of, background on the decision not to include the high school right now? Is that something that would need to come later, or maybe it's fine and it already doesn't have capacity or deferred maintenance issues? Not a trick question, just on a
Sure.
curiosity.
I'll provide a couple comments, but Mr. Piccone could certainly expand on those. As the trends appear right now and as it is right now, there is capacity at Berthoud High School. The challenge in the community with those 250 to 300 seats is certainly at the elementary and middle school level. Those students will obviously matriculate through the system and ultimately be in high school as well. But we have the capacity within the high school and the enhancements that have been done in the last 20 years, 15 to 20 years on that facility to accommodate that growth at this point. That was the thinking of not just staff, but the master planning committee that studied this extensively, which is, for those that don't know, the master planning committee is a community group that meets fairly frequently, once a month, I believe, and provide their input, their guidance to the district on what, where growth needs, contraction needs, to be perfectly honest, as the district has repurposed 4 elementary schools over the last 5 years. And I will leave it at that. I was going to provide an editorial comment, but in the spirit of Fair Campaign Practices Act, I will leave it at that.
Okay, no, that is helpful. Those are the questions that I had. I appreciate the information and thanks for presenting this to us tonight.
Thanks for your questions.
Other questions?
I have a couple.
Please. Trustee Wynn.
I know a lot about the grocery business, but I don't know too much about school board. So maybe you could help me understand at a pretty high level. Where does town funding, state funding, national funding come into this? Why do we need a bond? Is it because our normal budget or our normal scope of funding is just not sufficient to keep pace. Can you just help educate me at a high level on sort of how this stuff works?
Certainly. So those that know me would say there's no such thing as a short answer by me to a question like that, but I will make it as brief as I can. Funding is state-specific. There are grant funds that are available from the federal level, and the district participates in those programs as well. Typically, those are more educational related than facility related. So that's a major consideration there, but the majority of the funding comes from a state level. There's a School Finance Act that's in place, which was recently updated in the last session as well. House Bill 24-1448 in the last regular session that updated a 30-year-old School Finance Act. So there's a state component and then there's a local component. The local component being part of what the state says, here's what a school district should be funded at. And then a portion of that is funded locally by property taxes, and a portion is funded by the state from state income tax and state sales tax. The analogy that I typically use in my presentations is the state determines what that bucket of funding should be. And a common question that I have when I'm speaking with community groups is, my property taxes went up, I know my neighbors went up, what is the district doing with all that additional revenue? And the challenge is that bucket never changes. It's just made up of a state share and a local share. And if the local share increases, the state says, great, we just have to pay less. Conversely, if values would fall and income tax, property tax decreases in a community, the state would backfill or make whole that bucket, but the bucket never overflows, is the analogy that I typically use.
So would that say there's a finite budget, if you will? And so, again, if the local dollars aren't sufficient, the state offsets it, but if they exceed, then the state pulls back? Have I recapped that?
Correct, yep. Whatever gets us to 100%, if the local increases, state decreases, and vice versa.
Is there some kind of a metric that's built in where that bucket just perpetually grows because things become more expensive, salaries, everything else? Is that legally controlled, or?
The School Finance Act spells that out, which is determined by the state legislature on an annual basis. The typical two factors that would increase school funding year over year would be growth plus inflation. And growth means student count growth, which in the state of Colorado, in the nation, quite honestly, is declining. So our district overall is at about a 1.6%, 1.7% annual decline in student counts.
Statewide, is that what you said?
I'm sorry?
Did you say statewide it's in a decline?
That's Thompson School District
Okay,
specifically,
okay.
but that trend, there's pockets of growth in the state, but primarily across the state, it's a declining student count. So growth is not a factor, but the second part of that statutory formula is inflation. So whatever the inflation rate is, that's mandated by Amendment 23, that in the state constitution of how much school funding can increase in an annual basis. So that's one portion of funding. The other is within the Constitution, local communities are able to go to their citizens and ask for initiatives. That's what the special levy would be an example of, or the mill levy overrides that are in place to enhance what is being provided from the School Finance Act.
And that's incremental to this, I'll say hypothetical, excuse the expression, bucket that exists, that's sort of a finite dollar amount. And then you're saying these bonds are incremental, they're not subject to the same legality as this finite bucket. So then we need things like air conditioners, and that is where the bonds come in. Is that accurate?
The bonds would be for capital type programs. Right. The mill levy or the special levy would be for more operational needs. So back to your original question of why wouldn't the district just fund these items out of our general operating budget? they are significantly higher than what our operating budget would allow. So if we are building a new school or doing significant remodels of $74 million within the Berthoud area, it would be a challenge to be able to fund those out of the operating budget. And I would say beyond a challenge, it would be virtually impossible to fund that.
So what's the average maturity on these bonds? The time?
20-year bonds.
Okay, and so prior to today, and you coming for 220 million, I'm kind of new to the town. I have to believe that X number of years ago, multiple times, this has happened.
There's been, right now, there are 2 outstanding previous issuances.
Okay,
One of those will be ready to be retired in 3 years' time, I
Okay.
believe. And the other one was passed in 2018 which was the first one that the voters of the district had approved in 16 years.
and these just, if you will, they layer on top of each other until they mature. And so really that mill levy sort of keeps growing as we keep issuing these bonds.
Yes. We call it a wrapped debt service.
Okay.
So we know what's going to be dropping off in 3 years. So unlike a mortgage, the bond maturities, we can set those maturities with the help of our underwriter and our municipal advisor that advise us of when we're selling bonds into the market. They wrap that debt service, so there would be an increase, but then that increase stays static pretty much until the 2018 bonds drop off, then there would be a noticeable drop.
And is the design of those that they're essentially retired or paid off at the maturity date? So we don't have to refinance them?
That would absolutely is the intent. They have to be paid off in 20 years with the option. The typical pattern that for a bond sale is 10-year callable, which means we can refund or refinance at the 10-year mark, but we can't do anything for the first 10 years. Typically, that's the typical structure.
And these bonds all have to be voted on by the citizens to be approved, is that accurate?
That is correct.
And with the pressure that's being put on people financially, i.e. inflation and everything else, is the probability of these bonds passing less than 50%, or would that be an editorial?
That would be an editorial comment, but I would say I can factually point to the polling that was done in the spring, and there were 3 levels that we asked the community about: 150 million, 250 million, and 350 million. And as you can imagine, 150 drew the greatest favorability, 250 medium, and 350 was perhaps a bridge too far from the interpretation of the survey results. That rationale or that thinking went into the development of the $220 million package that has been proposed.
Nice presentation. You're obviously very knowledgeable. Just a couple other quick questions. So 91.1% graduating rate. How does that compare to sister towns and/or state and/or national percentages?
We would like to say that puts us in the lead.
Great.
Of northern Colorado.
And then this school district, is it all of Loveland?
It is all of Loveland, the majority of Berthoud, if not all of Berthoud, and then portions of Fort Collins, Windsor, and Johnstown.
South side of Fort Collins, logically, geographically?
The south side, yeah.
Okay.
We actually have 1 school or 2 schools that are within Fort Collins city limits, but Thompson School District boundary.
Great. One last question. Where is the $20 million scholarships coming from? That's not funded within the school district, or is it? Or is it outside funding?
Those are outside competitive offerings. They are some of the 2 of the main ones that you will hear about are really 3: the Daniels Fund, the Betcher scholarships, and National Merit scholarships. All of those are very competitive programs, and I'm proud to say that Thompson School District annually has students, graduating seniors competing for those awards.
That's great. I had one more question. Percentage that go on to college, do you have those facts?
Percentage that go on to college? I'm not.
I'm sorry for all the
familiar
questions, but I have to tell you, for me, this was very, very, very informative. I really appreciate it, so thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions. I would point to the, again, staying away from an editorial comment, but the popularity of the CTE or Career Technical Ed programs.
I had that written down.
That doesn't mean everybody has to go to college, because students can graduate from a CTE program with a certification and be employable.
What is that acronym?
CTE, Career Technical Education.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's the group that builds some of the Habitat homes, right?
It's part of that. We have a program called Geometry and Construction, where we are incorporating not just the building trades, building, wiring, shingling, siding, drywalling, but also using the math curriculum that feeds into that program. Rise over run for stairs, or slope of roof, those types of things. English curriculum from a contract development standpoint. It incorporates a variety of our core academic areas as well in the Geometry for Construction program, which has been used fairly frequently by the town of Berthoud for homes that are constructed by our students over the course of the year and then moved and placed in the Berthoud community.
With the calculator, is that assessed value you put in or actual value?
It is actual value of the home, and then the assessment rate that is applied. So again, it's value of the home minus 55,000 times 6.7% residential assessment rate to get to the taxable amount of the house, of the residential property. That figure, the taxable amount, times the mill levy rate, which for Thompson School District, all inclusive of all the mills that we assess, is about 40 mills, divided by 1,000 is an approximation of the taxes on an individual property, a residential property, I'll say, because there are different assessment values, different credits for commercial, industrial, agricultural, vacant, all those other real estate categories.
I think that this calculator is awesome. I was just asking because it said assessed value underneath, and it tells you how you can find your assessed value. But it's pretty clear at the top, it says property value. So.
Yeah, and on that website, there are also links to the 3 county commissioners. So while we're in parts of 5 communities, Thompson is in parts of 3 counties, Larimer, a sliver of Weld, and a sliver of Boulder County. So there's links to the assessors' websites where any individual can go and look up the actual, what the county assessor has determined to be the home value for your particular property. And then you can put that amount in. So it's what the county assessor says your home is worth. And then that gets to a taxable amount that the mills are applied to.
Okay, awesome. Other questions for Mr. Jones?
Need a vote, Sean.
Go ahead.
Okay. Regarding kind of the new seats we're looking at for the projection, that was 6 years, correct?
4 to
300?
4 to 6 years for those.
Looking at our 3 lower schools, the 2 elementaries and our middle, is that an equitable breakdown of those students, or is it more centered on one elementary or the other? Has there been any kind of investigation into that yet, or is it too early?
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees, Todd Cody. Yeah, great question. So it is, we looked at both schools, the boundaries and then the growth areas. I don't say it's luck have it, but where the actual town is growing, we see Berthoud right now is, in the last few years, has really grown. It's now going towards Ivy, with the developments around there. So in the end, they'd be the same capacity to fulfill all the growth in the areas. So that those seats would be split between those 2 schools, the added seats.
And then taking a look at the air conditioning, obviously that's a need that I'm aware of as a parent of 3 kids, but also what we hear about all the time. Is that primarily focused on just exclusively AC, or are we taking a look at renovating the heating and ventilation systems at the same time? And what kind of breakdown is that?
Yeah, so they're pretty extensive. So when we say adding AC, it's not going in and adding, a piece here and there. It's system replacement, so, we're looking at even like the electrical gear, full HVAC replacement, so new systems in the existing building, including, not just that, it's where the windows, the secure vestibules. So it's all those pieces that would make those budgets up. So, yeah, it's, when you think about an overhaul of a building, although complex, it's a pretty big overhaul, that's planned in those buildings.
Thank you.
Trustee Kritz?
Yeah, so if there is a factual answer you can give to this, it just popped to my mind. So, Berthoud being, from a population standpoint, the smaller portion of the voting segment, but the fastest growing area, I guess there's some probability that this wouldn't pass, right? But, even if a vote said, we're not going to do this, it doesn't erase the need. So if it didn't pass, what would kind of an alternative approach be? Would it just be to try again in a year or two, or would there be other financial mechanisms that could be utilized potentially? And, again, understanding it's a hypothetical, so.
Yeah, no, it's a question that, it's a factual question, what do you do if it
Yeah,
doesn't?
yeah.
One is, it's still a need, so we do again. Second is a tiered approach. What is the next step? If say it doesn't go, year 2, this is what modification would be. Year 3, here's the next modification. I don't want to speculate and go through all those scenarios, but, it's okay if it doesn't go now, go again. If it doesn't go, we're gonna keep going because the need's there. Everyone here knows and the community knows in this area that, the growth is here. So it's just looking at, okay, just the continual and then, really a phased approach into helping, the overcrowded of the schools.
Yeah. That makes sense. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Nice.
We have our school board rep here too, Mr. Boyd, also a parent of 2 Betcher scholars, so pretty impressive. Did you want to add anything, Mr. Boyd? Or Representative Boyd, I should say?
Or sir, as the case may be. I think the only thing that I would say is that as Berthoud's board member, I'm very aware and have paid very close attention to the growth needs of the community. And when Gordon and Todd talk about a $220 million bond issue, I don't know if this resonated with you, but I've had a lot of time to think about it. Approximately a third of the amount for the entire school district in this particular bond issue will be invested in Berthoud. And so I think in terms of our community being particularly interested in the outcome of the election, we have a vested interest. Of course, we always do. And as they said, of course, all of the buildings in the district and grounds and so on will receive some amount of investment from the passage of the bond issue. But in terms of our community, because of the dramatic growth, approximately a third of the amount would be invested in Berthoud. So that would be the only thing that I would say.
That's very good.
Would you say I'm correct?
I would, and I would further offer that elected officials are not bound by the same parameters of the Fair Campaign Practices Act.
I think a
as
resolution might be in
employees
order.
of the district are.
Great points. Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's very good. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good, Mayor Kurzbeck.
Yes.
I've been following the school district's movement towards this measure for years now. I feel strongly that we should make a motion for a supporting resolution to be entertained at the next meeting. I see this as a need and not a luxury. So with the board's support, I'd love to entertain that at the next meeting.
What does that
I'd
mean?
second that.
Resolutions is like, Christian likes letters of support, but I think traditionally, or at least in the state, you offer, it's a board resolved to, it's a position on either a state proposed law, or in this case, a ballot ask.
And we're
That's
just
the way
saying
I take it.
we're
Yeah,
in
we
favor of it?
support, Yeah.
doesn't bind anything, it's
No,
just.
no, no.
Okay.
It's also used for other reasons too, like
Okay.
BC resolutions that are packed all the time.
And it meets the requirements of the Fair Campaign Practices
Okay.
Act. The Fair Campaign Practices Act does allow this board to approve a resolution in favor of a ballot question.
And so there were 3 levels of funding for the bond. Is it the assumed we would do the 220, or is there more to dialogue?
They passed the 220 resolution as well as the 13 special levy, and that would be in support of both of those resolutions passed by the school district at their last meeting.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yep. Thank you.
Well supportive of that.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
sounds good.
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Gotta have cool kids in our school.
That's right, exactly. Okay, next we have Mr. Knoll, Keith Knoll, and Caitlin Haskovich?
Haskovich, yeah.
All right,
Sorry.
Haskovich, with the 2024 Parks Open Space Recreation Trails Survey. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Karsbeck. I'm here to share the results and the report for the 2024 Parks Open Space Recreation and Trails Survey. I just realized I shared the wrong presentation maybe with you, Christian.
If you can email it real quick, I can.
Give me 1 second.
Everyone else uses a technically illiterate excuse.
Okay, this is a much shorter presentation and not 80 pages. So in, well, I'll use that button.
No rush.
This survey came as a result in February when Port and the Board of Trustees got to review the Richardson Park designs, and there was a request following that a survey was put out. Basically, since the last survey was back in 2018, town has grown. We've had some new amenities added. Is these new amenities that we have coming on, do they align with the views of the town? So in March, Port met. We looked at the 2016 and 2018 surveys and kind of picked our favorite pieces out of those. In April and May, we worked with RRC Associates. They were involved in our 2016 survey. And we put together the survey, which in May the board approved, and at the end of May, the survey went out as an invite portion, where it was mailed out to all the residents. And then in the middle of June, it was open as an online link for anyone to fill out. And then through July and August, we've been reviewing the survey results, and then the Port Committee reviewed the results in the August meeting. So the survey had a few key aspects that I really looked into. One was current usage data of the facilities we have right now. Then it looked at, there were some general questions for the Richardson property and that park design and naming that were in there. And then there was a section that was all about kind of future amenities that the town could possibly add and the priorities listed there. So with that, I'm going to introduce Caitlin Haskovich with RRC Associates. She helped put together the survey, very instrumental in the whole process. And then she also sent the survey out to the residents and then took in the data. And she's going to share the results with you now.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Caitlin Haskovich. I'm a research manager at RRC Associates. We're based in Boulder, so we do hundreds of parks and recreation surveys across the country, but it's always nice to be here in person. So I manage all of our parks and recreation survey research, but was also involved in the 2020 comp plan. So it's just nice to work with a neighbor. We'll start off with some of the research methods. So we mailed paper surveys to every available household within the town. It was a 4-page survey, and it came with a cover letter with an option to take the survey online if the respondent would prefer. and that was passcode protected, just to make sure we got only one response per household. And the survey was also translated in Spanish online. We did talk through the 2016 survey, which we helped conduct, and we kept some questions, but most of the questions were new and of new topics. Overall, we collected 836 statistically valid surveys, which is a great number. It puts us at a margin of error of plus or minus 3.2%. And normally we're looking to get around 5%, so we were very happy with the total number of surveys received. And then later on, we did open the survey to the public, so anyone who wanted to express an opinion was able to, and that's an appendix to this overall report. And then once we did collect all of these statistically valid data, we took a look at the demographics and compared it to the US Census. And we did weight by age, gender, and Hispanic ethnicity, which is pretty typical in some of our survey data. We tend to hear from older folks as well as more females, so we just adjust the percentages slightly, but it makes it more accurate and representative of the population. So this is an example of one of the questions that was carried over from the 2016 survey. The historic data is included as the final portion of the overall report. But here you can see there's a lot more newer residents or a lot more newer respondents to the survey. We also collected more responses this time around. So 57% say that they've lived in Berthoud for less than a year to 5 years. So definitely representing a newer population. 15% still who have lived here for over 20 years. So just a bit of difference there between 2024 and 2016. This question asks about frequency of use, and it's sorted by most frequently used. And so up at the top there is the Berthoud Recreation Center, with 28% of the sample saying they visit the Berthoud Rec Center at least once a week, which was pretty high, followed by the Berthoud Recreation Trails, which is nearly a quarter of all of respondents say they visit at least once a week. From there, we asked, we had a list where respondents were able to rate the importance of specific amenities, and that's included in the final report. But here we asked them from that list, select your top 3 most important amenities. And you can see up here at the top, it's trails, or parks, and then trails, and then open space and natural areas. And that's kind of a theme that we saw throughout the survey of the importance of these 3 amenities, as well as aquatics features. So underneath open space and natural areas, we see leisure, pool, and these are amenities that are currently within Berthoud. So thinking about current use. And then from here, we had a list of current amenities. We asked respondents to rate how important these amenities are and how well they're currently meeting the needs of the community, regardless if they use that amenity or not. And the full ratings are in the report. Here, you can just take a look at the averages. It's might be a little bit difficult to read, but they're sorted by the difference between the average importance rating and the average rating for meeting the needs of the community. The blue dots are the importance rating, average importance rating, and the orange dots are the average meeting the needs of the community rating. And the only 2 categories in which importance exceeds meeting the needs of the community are parks and trails. And although those gaps are very minor, that's the only 2 areas. Everywhere else, all the other amenities are meeting the needs more than they rated higher than importance.
What's the top scale? I can't really tell from this.
Yeah, so parks was rated 4.3 in importance and 4.0 in meeting the needs of the community.
What's the scale?
Oh, 1 to 5.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah. 1 was not at all important, 5 extremely important, and then 1 not meeting the needs of the community, 5 meeting the needs of the community. And this is another way to look at the results. This is the same graph that we showed back in 2016. So it's a matrix of, on the left, you can see the importance, the average importance rating, and then on the bottom, meeting the needs of the community. And then that upper left-hand quadrant there is high importance, low needs met. So those are the two, so you can see trails rating higher in importance than the rating for meeting the needs of the community. And then aquatics, looking at the data this way, aquatics facilities also falls into that high importance, lower needs met graph. And then amenities that are doing very well in the upper right-hand quadrant are parks, playgrounds, and youth programs. So just a different way to look at the data. We have a further explanation on this graph if that would be helpful to see as well. So this section moves on from current facilities and amenities and asks more on the future planning projects. So this question we asked, how much do you agree that the town should continue to develop new parks, open space, recreation, and trails amenities using available town funds or bonds? So here you can see very strong support with 76% rating their level of agreement a 5 out of 5, with an average of 4.5 overall. And then we had a long list. It was broken out by different types of use of future amenities, and the respondents rated all of those on a scale of 1 to 5. And then as a follow-up, out of all of those amenities, we asked them to select which are most important. We also asked them to select which are least important, but that wasn't included in this report. But most important, you can see right there, it stands out a bit at the top, bike and running trails, outdoor pool, natural areas, and then amphitheater. And lower on the bottom, pump track, skate park, diving blocks. But strong support for those top 4 future amenities. This is a question that we commonly include, and it was actually included on the 2016 report or survey as well. We asked respondents if they had a hypothetical $100, how would you allocate those funds to different future improvements? And majority of those funds went to adding more pathways and trails, preserving existing open space, new aquatic amenities, and making improvements to and/or renovating and maintaining existing park facilities. We asked respondents to consider a new name for Richardson Farm. These were the names that were provided. The most support was for Mountain Vista Park, with 30% of respondents selecting Mountain Vista Park, followed by Berthoud Community Park with 24%, Eagle Ridge Park with 17%, and Reservoir Ridge Park with 16%. The least supported was Handy Park. And
I'm sorry, I don't know where Richardson Farm is. Where is it?
Do you know the
Richardson.
Loveland Lake right here?
Yes?
Yeah, it's just north of that.
Oh, there's a sign up there that said future, it says future. Thank you so much.
Good point.
And then we have a list of all the open-ended comments as well, so you can take a look at some of the other names that people provided. When we asked about the future of Richardson Farm, which would include multiple ball fields, do you have a preference for artificial or synthetic turf or grass as a playing surface? So the majority, 39%, said they're neutral, no preference. But then there's a higher percentage of those who prefer grass overall than turf. And then we had a follow-up open-ended question that asked why did they respond that way. So we have a word cloud here with some of the more commonly used words, as well as some of the themes. So kind of that support both options, but injury concerns with artificial turf, water conservation with artificial turf, maintenance and cost, environmental and health impacts, and heat and usability. So at the end of the survey, we like to include an overall open-ended comment or open-ended question that asked for any additional comments or suggestions for the town. We collected a total of 292 additional comments, And these are some of the common themes that we saw within those, but definitely a nice breadth of information included in that. So recreation and leisure as an overall theme. So that's where we see some of the comments around pools, splash pads, sports courts that are important to various demographics. And then accessibility and connectivity, which I think has come up throughout the survey overall. Support for safe and connected paths. Maintenance and development, so comments around upkeep and expansion to accommodate community growth and preserve the town's charm. And then the theme of community and family engagement, so focusing on creating family-friendly and community-oriented spaces that are good for people of all ages. And then lastly, affordability and inclusion, so concerns around financial affordability and the need for access for all residents. So overall, just some 3 big takeaways. Berthoud's a very engaged community. We can see that with the high response rate. They're passionate about parks. There's a strong level of familiarity within the system, and there's strong support for developing new parks. Respondents are frequent users of the Berthoud Recreation Center, as well as the Berthoud Recreation and Trails. And currently, parks and trails are rated as highly important to respondents. Looking towards the future, the addition of biking, running trails, an outdoor pool, natural areas, and parks are of higher importance. And I'll let Keith wrap it up.
Thank you, Caitlin. And so kind of just sharing how, when we looked at staff, and does this align with what we have going on in the future? Just some of the projects that we had in line and that are gonna come up for more review. Richardson Park, we know that park includes some aquatics, the athletic fields in the town. Although that usually falls within the middle of every survey, when all the surveys go out, the needs by our rec team for more fields is evident, especially if town park, if those fields ever phase away. We are utilizing currently all our ball fields, and we also utilize 2 school ball fields from Thompson School District, from the elementary and Ivy Stockwell. So ball fields are still a need for the town. And then playgrounds and trails. The North Berthoud Parkway Trail, that's currently out for bid right now, so we're expecting that to probably begin construction this fall. And then the Berthoud Arboretum, which is going through the construction document phase right now. That includes natural open space, a lot of trails, includes a small event lawn throughout that property. Port feedback-wise, based on the survey that we got received in August, one was for that quadrants to show the high needs first met, which we showed that graphic a little bit ago. That's really the main feedback I received from them. And Carl, if you have anything else to share from the Port Committee, please do.
Yeah, I think as you guys know, the main discussion that's been going on in Port regarding this for the past few months is the citizens' need and desire for an outdoor pool. And so I can hold comments and questions or whatever for discussion, but the main concern, and once again, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, but the main concern is that if Richardson goes through as planned, an aquatics facility might be 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the road, whereas the need and the desire is now versus possibly supplementing an outdoor pool somewhere while just phase 1 of the park is going on. That seems to be the kind of major concern is the time frame of getting a large outdoor community pool.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Thank you.
And that's all I have to share for this, so we're open to any questions, and Caitlin can answer any response.
Thank you.
Questions.
No, that was a great presentation. I'm gonna just kick it over to Administrator Kirk. I bet our questions around the survey, but comments around priorities and stuff, I imagine we're gonna need a study session for that to really dive in.
Yeah, I think our goal for tonight was to share the survey results with you, give you something to think about. We need to have a study session with you next to go back and review the Richardson Park plans. That's the kind of the next big park that was planned and designed. and then talk about the Trails Master Plan, the Open Space Master Plan, and look at where do we want to prioritize dollars for the next several years. And I think we can do that as part of the budgeting process. I think that's the appropriate time to do that, to kind of give you that overview, reintroduce, and maybe even introduce for some of our newer trustees all of those plans and what what they mean, where those facilities are at, what those designs look like. Give you our current cost estimates for all that work, and then we can decide when, where, and how to spend our money. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll just keep our questions and comments just defined or
I
related
think
to
for the purposes of tonight, let's focus on the survey, and then, we'll have another opportunity in the future to kind of dive into all the ideas and opinions about where we should spend our money.
Questions? Trustee Kurtz?
Yeah, so great presentation. I think when we initially, heard about, the Richardson design and kind of hit pause, there was almost a debate of like, do we need to remaster plan or should we just do a survey? And so we did the survey, and I guess from your perspective, staff perspective, did we get what we need? Like, do we feel like we have alignment and we don't need a full-blown master planning process to follow?
I think we still, there's alignment, of course, with what we have going on right now.
Yeah.
But I think as a whole, we're looking into a whole master plan
Okay.
for future, because we're running halfway to 75% through the current master plan. And we've had some new additions and so forth, so I believe it, yeah.
Gotcha, cool. That was my only question.
Trustee Wayne?
Can you pull up the slide again? By the way, great presentation. 70% answer to the number you sent out. That's a great percentage, so nice. I mean, that was really, really a good number. There's one in here that shows, that it might be that one. So where are the ball fields on here?
Halfway down.
Outdoor, I think it said outdoor, multipurpose athletic fields. Is
How
that
far
right?
down is it?
Diamond athletic fields.
So there's a couple of different options. and
So,
the
so
same
it's
is true with
9,
aquatics
right?
amenities.
So it's 9 compared to 40, 34, 34. You said there's a need, and I go to the parks very, very regularly. This morning, 7 a.m., the pickleball courts are packed. There's none open, 7 a.m. Parking lot, cars all in it. I drive by ball fields regularly, play baseball. I almost never see anybody on them, and I heard you say there's a need. It's a really low percentage here in Richardson Park. It looked like the land used for ball fields was 50% of the total. That was just my visual looking at the map. So I am pushing back on that a little bit. Who's using it? Is it leagues that are going? Is it one day a week and 3 months out of the year? It is really, I mean, this is confirming what I thought. It's 90% aren't putting it as a priority. I just want to make sure we really do feel like that's going to be utilized as much as maybe our perception is.
Yeah, the fields are reserved spring through fall. Usually that's in the afternoon or in the evening.
How many evenings a week average would you say? And how many do we have?
We have 4 fields.
Total, the whole town, 4?
We'll lose 2 eventually.
So just we'd have almost nothing if we did replace them.
Once Town Park gets finished, the master plan would be to take over 2 of those.
Okay.
2 of those.
Yeah.
All the ones at Town Park.
And a big part of the reason why I think athletic fields are kind of a unique issue, they were a big topic during the 2018 master plan. That's why they were prioritized. That we just built a really nice new indoor aquatics facility, and so we designed an outdoor aquatics facility at Richardson, but felt like ball fields were the next priority. That was part of why this survey got done.
Okay.
Because there was some consternation over that. One of the reasons why we don't, ball fields in particular, baseball, softball, as opposed to, we don't need a lot of multipurpose field space. We have tons at Wagner, right? But baseball, softball is kind of purpose-built, and they only take place at certain times, right? So like,
right.
And so you don't see kids on those fields a lot, but we actually have enough teams playing baseball and t-ball that, like, in some cases we have 2 teams practicing on the same field at the same time because we can't you know, if you think about the hours with which you're gonna run practices, it's typically after normal work hours
Yep.
and before the sun goes down. So you have a few hours where you can schedule all of your teams on a couple of fields. And so it's interesting, those fields are over-programmed during the times of use and barely used at all in the times when they're not practically available
exactly.
for use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you know, some cities, actually the NFL, actually share baseball stadiums with football stadiums. Is there a multi-use for, I mean, again, just because it's so much land and there's so much upkeep in taking care of it, could we at least look at, I don't know what that looks like.
I think there,
But I
yeah,
just
there's some
wonder-
conversations on that, but that might be part of the study session to kind of look into the.
So the original
Options.
Richardson design was all multi-purpose fields, baseball fields that are large enough to be used
Soccer
as
fields?
soccer and
Yeah,
football.
exactly.
Except that it creates these very strange shaped fields that are really too large for their purpose in most cases, because, you know, the vast majority of kids playing baseball and softball, that happens before the age of 13. At age 14, they move on to a big field, especially on the baseball side. It's a little less the case, but what happens with softball is kids get into high school and they start playing other sports and specializing. And so kids that play softball growing up might also play basketball and soccer, and then when they get to high school age, they only play one or two of those sports. But participation in both drops pretty significantly when they get older, and so those bigger fields are less necessary, whereas the smaller fields are really valuable and are heavily programmed. So when you build multi-purpose baseball fields that are also big enough to include softball, if you do it on artificial turf, it's really easy and you can create much smaller fields. If you do it on natural grass, everything has to be in the outfield. You know,
Right.
you have to have an outfield
That's
big
right.
enough to hold a soccer field.
That's right.
And so we decided, I think, just practically speaking, we have enough multi-purpose fields for baseball or for soccer, flag football, we could do lacrosse. Some of those things at Wagner, because we have huge open field space. And so purpose-built baseball, softball fields would be smaller, less costly to construct, easier to maintain, and would be better playable surfaces for their purpose-built
Do the
function.
schools
if that
have a
makes
need for ballparks? I mean, would we let
Not
them
really.
use these or? is
They,
not
you know, they have a
easy?
couple of diamonds at the two elementary schools that we do use. We used to use the one, excuse me, in Ivy Stockwell. It's in pretty poor condition and it's very hard to play on. So we don't even really practice there anymore much. The Berthoud one, I think our team takes care of the one at Berthoud because of a grant agreement with the school district from some time ago. And that one's in good shape. We do still schedule practices there when that's available.
Okay.
Yeah. But the high school has a nice baseball field, and actually the softball team plays at our facility.
What softball team? Girls softball?
The high school softball team.
Boys?
No, girls softball.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I was driving through Fort Collins today, and I just happened, the streets I was on, I just happened to notice parks with waters and ponds and stuff. And is there any metric that says you should have X space per population or per geographic area? Is there anything nationally, any kind of metric that says what's optimal? Do you understand the question?
Yeah, the National Parks and Recreation Association, NRPA, does, and National Recreation Park, yeah, NRPA, sorry, does have a recommended park standard. That's changed over the years. I think the current one is a little over 10 acres per 1,000 residents.
Okay,
So
that's a cool thing. And then last thing, so I go to the rec center, the grass areas all around there, they're big, they're open. I have to tell you, I don't know who's maintaining those, but it's unbelievably stellar. That grass is cut nicer than most golf course fairways.
Most, what about ours?
I think it's,
You think it's better?
there wasn't a brown spot.
I want to extract that from you. That's
I think
all.
it's better than the TPC
Yeah, good, all right.
fairways, and I live on one. But I have to tell you, if you would please pass that on, it's like, I notice it, I walk out on it and I'm like, oh my gosh, there is not a dry spot, there is not, I don't know how many acres that is, there's not a dandelion in all that space. So whoever's doing that work, I mean, they are like world-class,
Lawn masters.
yes,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. I wish
Stealing from
my
TPC.
yard had that much water on it. But anyhow, please
Pete's
pass.
team in the Parks Department does an amazing job.
It is amazing. It truly is. I mean, there's there's not a brown spot in 30 acres out there, so
They even
it's,
challenged themselves a few years ago.
what?
They even challenged themselves a few years ago. They went out and killed off so much grass, but then boom, saved it all. It was amazing. I was so
Anyhow,
shocked by
it's
that.
worth commenting on. It's
Yeah,
whoever the
thank you.
heck really actually owns that. It's, I can't even believe it. It's
They
so
take a lot
amazing.
of pride in what they do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, so anyhow, great presentation, really good stuff.
Yeah. The question's narrowly defined to the survey, results.
Well, the demand for an outside pool, we've always talked about, we've already pre-plumbed and kind of prepped the rec center for having a nice big square outside pool to the south. And seeing that it's a high priority, that's already kind of got a head start. Cost-wise and time-wise, would it be feasible to build a Mountain Vista Park? I can't remember what we call it that now, versus doing something at the rec center. I mean, time-wise, I mean, what would we'd be looking at? Could we build a
can
pool?
obviously dive into a lot of that in more detail when we have a study session, but I think the short answer is, we have some cost estimates that were old for an outdoor pool at the rec center. Using our inflation and the other construction cost escalation that we've seen in the last couple of years, I think adding an outdoor pool is probably 6 to 10 million at the rec center.
Okay.
I think, and that's just a rough number based on some old estimates. We do know that the addition of ball fields, parking, and all the associated infrastructure at Richardson, because it's green fields, is a lot of work to do, a lot of grading work in particular, is very expensive. But ball fields is probably 16 to 18. And then the outdoor aquatics facility is currently constituted in the design at Richardson, is probably in the $20 to $28 million range, depending on how far we wanted to go. So that was a much larger amenity than what we would do at the rec center, of course. There's just not nearly the same kind of space at the rec center, but that's just some rough numbers for you, I think.
It's about 3 times as much to build it out at the Richardson.
Yeah, and probably about 3 times larger, all things considered.
Okay, so, okay. And so timeline-wise, to build either one?
Well, assuming we had the money today to do all of those projects are probably 8 to 16 months. An outdoor pool at the rec center is probably 8 to 12. Ball fields is probably 12 to 16. Big outdoor aquatics facility at Richardson is probably 12 to 16.
Either way, just
Yeah,
if we had the money.
Even if we started tomorrow, they wouldn't be open until 2026. I think that's probably the easy way to say it, yeah.
So there's no time saving of doing either one, it's just where do we want to do it and how much do we want to spend?
The real saving is the time value of money, right? So nothing's gotten less expensive the last few years. And so, but you never know what inflation's gonna do. I mean, you guys have heard us say this before. We got really fortunate with the rec center in that we hit the construction market at the right time and the interest rate market at the right time. And about 2/3 of the way through construction, our contractor said, hey, if we were bidding this project today, it would have been 40 million plus, as opposed to, the 30 that we constructed it for. So, you just never know, but then prices flatlined for a while, and then about 2 years ago, in some cases, our construction projects doubled in cost. Even from the time where we started the construction design to the time we bid it, they were almost, if not double, darn near close. And so you just never know. So the longer you wait, the more expensive stuff typically gets. That's not always true, but that's the risk with waiting. But the risk with not waiting is that you don't have the money to do it in the first place. So it may not make a difference.
When do you think we could have a study session?
I think that
When's ideal?
it really depends on when you all want to study it. We have a handful of other items that we wanted to bring to you in the context of the study session in September and October. October would be a good time. That's budget season. So, if we brought this back to you in October for, a little deeper dive.
Add that with another agenda item and call it a study session.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, does that work for everyone? Awesome, thank you. This is a great survey.
Yeah.
Really informative. No, do you have a question? No, go.
Just
Sorry,
had a
sorry.
comment. Really wanted to thank you for all the work that went into this survey. just capturing the details and stuff. Particularly, I'm a visual person, just breaking it down in different kind of graphics is really helpful. And I think the most important thing we were looking to capture was just that huge growth we've had in the past few years and the new residents and what do they want. So thank you for all the work that went into that. The one other thing I wanted to bring up that I feel like we could move forward on is there kind of a general consensus that we move forward with formally naming it Mountain Vista based on the results of that survey? And bring it
tonight?
It doesn't have to be tonight. Seems like an action item we could just.
I'd rather wait.
That's fine.
Appreciate it.
That's all I've got.
Appreciate keeping the ball or the train rolling.
That's all good.
Other questions, comments? This has been awesome. Thank you, guys. Madam Haskovic.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
One thing I'd also highlight is we're able to dive deeper into any of the results. So if you want some more data points before your study session, we're able to do that. We can look at the results by specific demographics, so newer residents versus older residents, or households with children versus households without children. So, or by area of town, we're happy to provide any of those.
Actually, I would like, if you guys agree, for especially the bikes and trails and parks, if we could break it down to the responses based on area, we might have a better understanding of where the people are living that have such a high request for bike trails and pedestrian.
And I think the same would be true for aquatics. We've talked about this before, but Farmstead will have a pool, Vantage will have a pool, Heritage Ridge already has a pool, Heron Lakes has a pool, Prairie Star has a pool. So, is there still a demand for outdoor aquatics from those areas? Or is it primarily from areas of town where there aren't community pools? And I think that changes maybe where we locate things and maybe what, the scale and scope of those facilities too. So that would be an interesting look as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And could we do that for the study session? Right. Who do we email with any clarifications or questions?
Why don't you work through me and then I'll connect with Keith and Caitlin, and we'll dial in some additional data. And so if you have any other questions as you're kind of thinking about it and you think, this might be really interesting to have when we get to that study session, just shoot them to me and we'll gather up as much as we can.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. Great job. Okay, got an hour here. We got the mid-year budget adjustment. Administrator Kirk, this is a public hearing. So again, Administrator Kirk will present. We'll ask questions of Administrator Kirk, open it up to the public for any testimony on this mid-year budget adjustment, and then bring it back to the board for a vote.
Thank you, Mayor Karspeck and trustees.
We have Cindy Leach here too.
Cindy Leach, our awesome finance director, is here to walk you through kind of the structure of the mid-year budget adjustment. The detail sheet that was included in your packet can be maybe kind of hard to understand each year. We're going to have to kind of walk through that a little bit. So I asked Cindy to just kind of walk you through the structure of how that is set up. I'll talk about some of the specific items, the big ticket items, happy to answer any other questions, but just so that you kind of understand where those big ticket adjustments come from and why. And then I'll cover the summary, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you have just broadly after that. So if it's okay, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Cindy and let her kind of walk you through that spreadsheet.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So last December when we adopted the budget for 2024, it was based on estimates where we thought we would be at, based on where we were at that time. The audit is performed the first part of the year, so it was completed about the end of April, first part of May. So at that time, we make sure that then we have our actual amounts. So part of the supplement is bringing the actuals to the budget numbers. It also includes rolling over things that we either didn't get finished or didn't completely finish or even start, and we still are going to do. So if we were going to buy a truck in 2023 and we ordered it, but it didn't come in until 2024, we need to move that money and appropriate it again this year. And then it also includes things that were either underestimated or that came up in the course of the year so far. So the worksheet, I know it looks really confusing, but it starts out with attachment A with the budget numbers based on what we adopted for 2024 last December. Then where it says 2023 actuals versus estimate, the second column, if it's a positive number, that means, for example, for revenues, we actually got, for the general fund, 1,998,000 more than we estimated. And if the estimate for the expense is less, that means that we spent less money than we thought we were going to spend. So it actually increased the ending balance from 15 million to 24 million. Now, keep in mind, part of that are the things that we didn't get done. It's not just simply we just spent less money. It's because we planned a project that we didn't get completely spent. So when you look at the rollover numbers down in that second area, which is the third column, you'll see that 5,800,000 is being rolled over from that 6,900,000 that we didn't spend. Anything in yellow is generally new things. This particular year, we're moving some money. We had some money budgeted for some projects in a couple places, and we figured it was easier to transfer the money to one fund so that we could track it better. So some of that's in there, but the money was already budgeted in another fund. So that's basically what the columns are. The last column is the new things. And then at the very bottom gives you your completely updated ending fund balance if everything in the supplement was adopted. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah, and so if it's okay, I'm gonna go to the podium because it's a little easier to run the spreadsheet from there, and that way I don't have to ask.
Thank you directly.
If we have questions, do you want us to ask? Do you want us to wait, or do we wait?
With the public hearing, we'll wait till Administrator Kirk's done.
Okay.
So, as Cindy explained, we have our estimates when we do the budget. About halfway through the year, we have the audit complete. Now we know our ending year-end totals. So when we do the budget in October, November, December of the prior year, we're still several months behind all of the revenue and expenses coming in for that prior fiscal year. So we update all those. We've done the rollovers, so you'll see, as an example, and if you went through the packet in detail, you notice that the majority of the changes are in the general fund. The rollover expenditures that you see, there are things like H&S utility assistance is a good example. We budgeted a certain amount of money. That was expected to be given back to them on a reimbursement basis. They didn't use all of that money. But as you know, earlier this year, you authorized us to continue that funding for them, and so we're adding that back to this year's budget, what didn't get spent last year. So that's a rollover expense. The I-25 interchange is another good example, $630,000. I'm gonna zoom in a little so it's a little easier to read. The I-25 interchange, that $630,000 rollover, we had a certain amount budgeted for that project based on the construction contract. That project didn't finish in 2023. Construction continued on. It's actually still not 100% complete. We did the punch list walk just a couple of weeks ago. They've got to do some reseeding. They've got to fix some stuff that was broken. But that project continued on into 2024. So the money that we budgeted in 2023 that didn't get spent gets rolled over to 2024. Does that make sense? So those are those rollover expenditures. Third in Massachusetts, we've been carrying that money as an expense for a couple of years. Part of the reason why we do that is that money then becomes kind of allocated for that purpose, and it doesn't end up back in kind of the bucket, right? And so we may carry those for a few years, knowing that that project isn't necessarily going to happen this year, but we want to allocate that money and continue to roll it over each year until that project gets executed. So third in Massachusetts, the design is nearly complete. There's a lot of railroad coordination because a bunch of that 3rd Street right-of-way is actually in railroad right-of-way. The entire railroad park is within railroad right-of-way. So There's some interesting utility challenges and undergrounding stormwater there that's an ongoing problem, and how to store it and where the railroad will allow us to put it. And anyway, so that project is just gonna take some time. We're gonna continue to carry that money unless you tell us to dispense with the project and spend that on something else. Let's see. And, again, so things like Richardson Park, that design has been ongoing. Bike park expenses are in a lot of the bike park expenses are in the Richardson Park line item, other things that have carried on over a couple of years. On the supplement, these are things that either you have already authorized us to add. A good example would be the VFW lease assistance, right? We talked about that recently. So we're adding money to the budget that was not conceived of previously. The American Legion funding that we provided earlier this year for veteran support services, we did that under contract with the American Legion for rent, utility assistance, and other things for them to provide those. The radar speed trailer, that one is I think obvious, but that was not something that you had previously authorized, but something that we want to add to our fleet, if you want to put it that way. We get a lot of requests for radar speed trailers throughout town to kind of help slow traffic, but also to monitor and gather data. We set those out, and it gives us good data readings about how fast folks are going in certain areas of town. The town park line item, the Richardson Park, that $1 million is a combination of two things. That's increase in expense for the design. There's redesign work that happened as a result of the cost estimate that was done at the 60% design phase. If you'll recall, we talked about at 60%, we had FCI constructors who built the rec center do a detailed cost estimate for us, and it was in the $80 million range, which was twice what the cost estimate was when we started design. So that's a good example of that cost escalation. So we did some major redesign work to bring that cost way down. Again, there's some bike park expenses in that line item and some other things. But in most cases, that's some overages based on major design changes. We did put the aquatics facility design on hold, so but we have money budgeted in case we want to continue forward with that based on future study session. Town park, as Cindy mentioned, that $4.5 million is consolidating money that was budgeted in other funds, but bringing that all into the general fund. So that's a little bit like a rollover, but because we're moving all of that into one fund, we're adding that in as a supplement. So that money is coming out of other funds, but it's a supplement to the general fund, if that makes sense. On the water purchases side, we're fortunate that we've been able to purchase a lot of water. We've used up the budget that we had originally established for this year. You just never know what's going to come available. And we want to have a significant chunk of budgeted money available through the rest of the year. There are a couple of water deals that we have underway that may or may not come to fruition, but that may be significant dollar amounts. And so this is more of a placeholder expense in the budget with the hope that we're going to be able to acquire some water between now and the end of the year. That may or may not happen. On the water operations side, as you'll recall, we rented office space from Northern Water, some temporary office space that they had previously constructed. It's actually really nice temporary office space. But that's freed up space in Town Hall because we're going to add to our team and build some engineering capability in-house that we don't currently have, that we use contractors and consultants for. So you guys approved that lease agreement, but we needed to add the expense line item in there for that rental. And the same is true with things like chemicals. The chemicals are a commodity that we buy. We don't control the price. We estimate how much chemicals will cost in order to run the water treatment plant, and sometimes those numbers don't line up when we get into the actual costs over the course of the year. One of the things that we've added in here that you'll see reflected in several different funds. So you can see here it says impact fee study 1/7. So we've broken up the cost of an impact fee study among 7 different funds. Those funds are all impact fee funds. So water capital improvements, wastewater capital improvements, stormwater capital improvements, parks, streets, public facilities. These impact fees are paid by new development. We hold them and use them to construct bigger parks, bigger streets, bigger water and wastewater facilities to mitigate the impact of development on the town. So that's why they're called impact fees. We're mitigating the impact of development. We need to update that study. As you can imagine, most of our studies are several years old. And if the cost of the park doubled in, in the last 2 years, but our fee hasn't doubled, we're not collecting enough money to continue to expand the capacity of all of our systems. The same is true with water and wastewater. Our last impact fee study was actually 2017. So that one is even older. Best practice is every 5 years, but we waited to do water and wastewater impact fee studies until the water and wastewater master plans were done, which we finished earlier this year. So now we have comprehensive new water and wastewater master plans for capital facilities. Now we need to update our fees so that we're capturing enough money from new development to build those facilities when they're necessary. So you'll see that impact fee study that's reflected in several different funds, but the cost of that's broken up among the 7 funds that collect impact fees. And so the rest of these are things like, hey, there's some maintenance and repair, pumps break, systems go out, and maybe we didn't budget enough money. We always budget money for maintenance and repair at our facilities, but you just never know exactly what's gonna happen over the course of the year, and sometimes those things are more expensive than what you planned. Same thing, our sweeper, our street sweepers, their parts are very expensive. You have kind of standard replacement schedules, but just like your own vehicle, sometimes things break when you don't expect it, and you have money that you have to replace, parts that you didn't plan for. On the stormwater side, you see the impact fee study, I already addressed that. The Serenity Ridge Drainage Project, there's a couple of stormwater channels that all funnel into one concentrated spot in Serenity Ridge. That's the community out on the east end of town, out by I-25. And in that one spot, in heavy rain events, there are major flows through that channel right in front of folks' homes. It doesn't flood. It's not flooding people's homes, but it's tearing up landscaping, it's undermining driveways. And so this project would allow us to divert some of those flows into a different path and bring the amount of water down through there. So that project is designed. We'd already paid and budgeted for the design project, but we haven't budgeted for the construction. So that would be constructing this effort. The $650,000 Farmstead Playground contribution, as you'll recall, that is the adaptive park project that the town has committed funds to. That park will not be constructed by the end of this year, but this is another one of those. We're going to go ahead and budget the money with knowing that we're going to roll that over to 2025, but that way that money comes out of the bottom line, and we know that money is reserved for that purpose. On the public facility side, we do buy general administration vehicles and replacements, as well as public works, parks, and other general fund supported departments. We budget for vehicles out of that fund. This is an additional code enforcement vehicle for a second code enforcement officer. This says Arboretum construction. This is actually not construction. This is the design that you approved already. So you approved the design contract with Wank Associates for the construction drawings for the Arboretum. This is capturing that design expense. So it's construction drawings, not construction. And that is, I think, the significant majority of the larger supplements. You can see here the 1998 1% sales tax. As I mentioned before, we're taking money out of that fund and transferring it to other places. In this case, for the I-25 Art and Landscaping project, we're actually moving money from the general fund back into this fund that we've budgeted in the capital department of the general fund. And then these are just some improvements that we feel are necessary, both at the rec center, the bike park, and then that outdoor lap pool feasibility study, that we had that cost prepared by Wank Associates and BRS, who designed the rec center. This would be to develop a concept plan and do the preliminary engineering to do an outdoor pool at the rec center. So if we want to move forward with that, we wanted to make sure that money was already included in the budget so we could kick that off this year. So that's really it. On the summary side, excuse me, I don't know if I have this. Yeah. So on the summary side, what you'll see, this was included in your packet as well. The original estimated ending fund balance total for all the different funds that we manage was $96 million. Because we spent less and we also took in more in revenue, when you adjust that with our 2023 actuals, that total ending fund balance would be $123 million. As Cindy mentioned, obviously a lot of that was expected to be spent last year and it's getting rolled over. But when you count rollover and supplemental expenditures, we still believe that the ending fund balance across all funds will still be $102 million at the end of the year. So even with the supplement and the rollover expenditures, we're expecting total end fund balance to be a little more than $6 million more than what we originally planned. So with that, I'm happy to answer all the questions they have. At least do the best I can. If I can't, we'll ask Cindy to come back up and correct me when all the places I get it wrong.
Trustee Wynn?
Yeah, so this is a really user-friendly slide you have up right now. So I would never say that you're sandbagging, but every single fund was better than budget. So obviously that's a philosophy of a conservative budgeting. We'd much rather see all these positives than negatives.
That's very true. Cindy is very conservative, much more so than I am. She's a wonderful balance to the let's do every cool project idea.
30% better than the budget.
That really is a testament to
Street
her and
would
really
like
to all the
numbers like
staff.
that.
Our staff members are all very conservative in the way that they spend money. They're cognizant of budget. We review it on a regular basis, and they're very mindful of where they spend money and what they spend money on. They're always looking for the best deal.
Yep.
And so,
So again,
it does, I think, represent a very conservative
It's a
philosophy.
really nice slide. So we're rolling over about $13 million that we didn't use from a previous budget, and that even could have come from 22 or 21, and it
That's true.
could have kept coming forward.
Some of those rollovers are actually multi-year
Yeah.
rollovers, yeah.
And then the supplemental is stuff that we've come up with, and would you say that's budget in calendar year '24?
All of the supplemental would be budgeted in calendar year '24.
Okay.
Some of that supplement is likely to roll over to next year.
Okay.
Because, there's a practical reality to how fast we can spend money. And so we may have things, a good example is the Farmstead Playground, right? I already mentioned that. We're adding a supplement of $650,000 to contribute to the Farmstead Adaptive Park. Well, that's not going to get spent this year. So it is getting added into the 2024 budget, knowing that it will get rolled over to 2025.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
Yep, and so the ending fund balance of almost $103 million, that would be our 2024 estimated, if you will.
That's correct.
Ending fund balance.
That's
Yep,
correct.
solid.
So there's also a high likelihood that when we get to the middle of 2025, that our actual ending fund balance for 2024 will be higher than 102 million, but that is our estimated. And I only say that because it has been, I think, every year I've been here.
And if we were to have an opportunity to purchase some land for open space, this total of these funds would be where that could be drawn from, and would that default to the general fund or not necessarily?
It depends. Open space, as a good example, there's only 3 or 4 funds that we can spend money out of. The reason why we have fund accounting, and we'll go over this again when we go to budget. We do that kind of every year. It's just a refresher. But the reason why we do fund accounting is because each one of these funds is restricted in its use. And so, money that is set aside for water capital improvements can't be spent on open space, right? For instance, so there's transparency and accountability as part of that fund accounting process. Something like open space could only come either from the general fund, from parkland dedication. We can use that for parks and open space acquisition. potentially Conservation Trust, although that fund is never real healthy. It's just, that's the way that fund operates. Larimer County Open Space, or the 1998 1% sales tax. I think we could also use 2019 1% fund for open space, although it was generally pretty specific to Parks and Recreation. So if it didn't have a Parks and Recreation expected component, we'd have to talk about that, about whether or not that made sense out of that fund.
Okay, two other things. 8% increase in the funds, that's a really nice job. Really good job managing the numbers, so great job. This is just a micro question. So almost $500,000 to do the construction plans, right? I mean, that just sounds like an awful lot of money for someone to do plans, but it's a big plan. Do you have some guide that says, we really should have been charged $100,000 or we should have been charged $1 million? It just sounds like so much money to do a plan and.
It is. It's a lot of money. In the context, so there's two ways that we evaluate design contracts. One is just kind of a standard planning number, and that is 10% of what we expect the construction to be. It's not uncommon for design costs to be in that 10% range. Obviously, if it's a very expensive project, you would expect design to be a little less of a percentage, and if it's a very small design project, sometimes that design is actually more than 10% of the construction cost of a project. That's just an easy, quick check for us. In this case, we think the estimated cost of the Arboretum is between $6 and $8 million, so it's actually really more like 50 or 60%, and so we feel like that's a reasonable fee. The other way we look at it is we literally just look at the breakdown of hours that's expected. So when we do a solicitation for design proposals, the consultants that submit those proposals will submit a schedule. They'll submit all of their internal team as well as any sub-consultants that they plan to use. And they will break down the entire construction project into a total number of hours from each one of those employees in order to do that project. And so, in some cases, we'll get a proposal that'll say, okay, it's 6 months, it's a 6-month design project, and, we think we're gonna have 8 employees, and each one of them is gonna work 2,000 hours on the project. Well, we know right away that's nonsense, because full-time employment over 12 months is 2,080, right?
Yep.
So if you're gonna work 2,000 hours per employee in a 6-month schedule, you either are gonna blow your schedule, and so you're lying about your schedule, or you're lying about how much money you're gonna spend. So, we look at those proposals under that lens as well, and we do competitive proposals. So that usually gives us a pretty good idea. We just did actually the impact fee proposal is a good example. You get really wide-ranging proposals back. One firm said they thought it was gonna be a $220,000 project. And it was gonna take 840 hours of time. Another firm said, we think this is a $77,000 project, and it's gonna take 430 hours of time. Then you have to look at their scope and say, one, did they understand, which of these two understood the scope of the project? And is it reasonable for them to do that scope within the time they've prepared? In this case, the $220,000 one, their scope was nearly identical to the $78,000 one. They just, I think, grossly overestimated how much time it was gonna take. We will not be recommending that we hire them.
Great. Thank you for
that. Excuse me, just as a process, that's kind of what we go through.
That's
if that
exactly
makes
what I was
sense.
looking. And then the last question is, you made a comment, we felt that the supplemental expenses here were necessary. We needed to do some of these things, the pool. So where is the cutoff when you vet something off the board, or you guys just make the call? Is it because it falls within the scope of the budget, or I'm a little gray on what comes to hey, the VFW needs 12 grand.
Yeah.
You didn't just make that call, but you made some of these other calls. So where's that line on decisions like that?
In the context of a design project, if it's within the total budget, we'll just go ahead and make that call ourselves. The same is true on a construction side. We typically will budget 5 to 10% more than we think it's gonna cost. So it gives us some contingency to be able to utilize for change orders. In some cases, especially in the context of multi-year projects, And when you have multi-year expenses, if we're not watching that really closely and we exceed that budget, sometimes we do that without intending to. I think in the case of the Richardson Design Project, we knew how much the design was gonna be, and we actually under budgeted it. And so, you know, our original budget from 3 years ago was 2.2 million, but the actual cost of the project was 2.9, and we didn't get the budget corrected. And so that one's just on
So
us.
somewhere in the process, most of that stuff is vetted off the board and you guys kind of live within your budget, is that an
Yeah,
accurate statement?
and in 99% of the cases, you guys are approving the contracts that authorize these funds, but we didn't get the budget updated. So, you know, there may be cases where you authorized us to spend money that we didn't capture in the budget, and then we need to correct that when we get to mid-year,
Got it.
if that makes
Thank you.
sense.
Good answers.
Yeah.
Other questions? All right, thank you very much. I'll open it up to the public at this time. Is there anyone in the audience that likes to speak to this agenda item? We have no one signed up? That's crazy. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for deliberation. Is trustees, anything like removed, anything, comments? Otherwise,
Just one comment. Is it an accurate statement to say that the budget, once finalized, is static? It doesn't, you don't go back and make amendments to it, you don't change it. The budget's the budget. And then you have your actuals and maybe you have some estimates. But the budget is almost like set in concrete. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so, and Cindy could probably speak to this better than I can, but we have some statutory limitations about exceeding budget.
Okay.
So once you approve a budget, unless you approve a supplement, we can't go over that. Or we get into trouble.
Got it.
And so that's part of why we do the supplement. Some communities, and I think this was probably the case before I got here too, but they would bring supplements throughout the year as things changed. I think it's easier to do it once we get halfway through the year, once we close out June's numbers. Then it's a lot easier to come and say, okay, we're halfway through the year. We have a really good idea of where our revenue's at and where we expect it to be. We have a really good idea about where our expenses are at and where we expect them to be, and we make those adjustments. There have been times where we've made adjustments at the very end of the year when we're doing the annual budgeting process, and you approve the annual budget, you may go back and change the prior year budget before it ends, but that's pretty rare. So from our perspective, once you approve that budget, we try really hard to stay within it, unless there's just things that legitimately we miss, or that we just couldn't practically plan
Semantically,
for.
there can be variances, that's real world, there are always gonna be variances. My firmer question is, the budget's the budget, it's static.
Philosophically, the budget is the budget.
Yeah. Okay.
other questions related to this supplemental adjustment?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to
Oh,
once
sorry,
again
comments.
thank everybody involved for making these things clear and answering questions succinctly and for effect. It's very helpful to get these presentations that and answer the questions in a way that are, once again, on point, on task, clear where the money's coming from, where it's going. It's incredibly helpful.
I would say the lack of questions is a compliment.
No, agreed. Thank you for saying
We're
that.
hoping we get to annual budget, it'll be the same way.
Is there a motion to approve, anyone else? Is there a motion to approve resolution 2024-11, a resolution of the town board of the town of Berthoud, Colorado, making a supplemental appropriation of funds and adopting budget amendments to account for rollover and supplemental items and making a supplemental appropriation?
So moved.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem has moved on this ordinance, or
I'll second.
resolution. Is there a second?
I'll do it.
Trustee Hardy is seconded. Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Wing,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Trustee Kurtz,
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Karsbeck.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. Our final agenda item tonight are general code changes. This is a presentation, but we have our senior, community development director, Ann Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor Karsbeck and members of the Board of Trustees. With all anticipation, this is the last code amendment that will come before you in 2024.
You'll find something.
Well, we have a big
Last
list.
one. Expect to bring to you.
Big pile of sticky notes for 2025. But this hopefully will be the last for this year. Planning Commission did hear this request at their June 13th, 2024 public hearing and voted unanimously to bring it forward to you this evening. So the goal tonight is to introduce the 4 themes or buckets of code amendment. And then we will go have a final reading in 2 weeks. So for all of the members of the audience, and for a reminder for ourselves, when making code additions, there are best management practices which we as planners follow, and some of those are on this slide. Amending code is time-consuming. It considers unintended consequences of the change or the edit. An example from when we're learning from others, like the telecommunications code, short-term rental changes that you just heard. Staff has also worked to scrub the code presented this evening due to input from development community, from applicants, from the public, input from the comprehensive plan, input from staff, where we're just wondering, what does this mean? And the intent is to simplify it so that we can communicate clear expectations and clear understanding on what the intent is and what the vision of the town is. So we want codes to be able to be pivotable, where if we see a change, we pivot, we make the change and move on. And again, it's very time consuming, but why do we expend the time? One of the biggest reasons is oftentimes there may be a code provision, a definition, for example. Maybe there's a land use that's not defined. Maybe there's a defined land use that's not on the land use table. And so rather than always spinning around, we're going to fix it because it, again, wastes time and it's disrespectful to waste time. Again, we don't take this lightly. We write code based on best management practices. Many of the definitions that will be presented to you, if they were new definitions because they were a land use on the land use table, but they're not defined in the code, they came from the American Planning Association Book of Definitions. So oftentimes we'll also borrow definitions from other communities. So we're not reinventing the wheel. The goal is to get a solid code and then continuously monitor it and continuously improve it. A good code with thoughtful vision from the development community, from Planning Commission, and from you all, and observations from the public will be presented to you tonight. These items have actually been in the works since the end of 2023. So about 10 months we've been working on these items. Might actually be kind of a light code amendment, but there's a lot of detail that we've been working on. There are changes that will come about from the Housing Steering Committee, which had a nice kickoff meeting last week. And those changes will be focused on the housing component of the code, but we're not going to talk about those tonight because we don't know what those are. We haven't finished our study. So again, you'll hear staff presentation, which we're about ready to do. Then there will be, if you want to take any public testimony on this introduction tonight, you make that decision, and then you have a discussion. You could vote on it tonight, but we did publish it for 2 readings.
No, it says September 10th, 2024, second reading.
Yep,
Are you just saying we could not do that?
You could if you wanted to, but we've already published it, so it'd probably be best just to go ahead with the second reading.
Statutorily, as a statutory town, you don't have an obligation to have 2 readings. We have always done that as a matter of good practice.
Right, I agree. Yep, I'm coming off like a jerk here, but we got 9:30 here, so, but we got 25 minutes, so we're great. Okay, we're good.
And I can read really fast. And
You're good, and I don't want to rush
All
trustees'
right.
questions. I'm sure people
So-
prep this. I just want to let everyone know.
And you can treat this
That
as
way I
an
don't get calls and
introduction.
talks to,
You can
so.
treat this as an introduction tonight, where we walk you through the basics. You can ask a handful of questions, then we can dive in more at the public hearing for adoption in September.
I think that's fair.
So an overview. So tonight, we're going to talk about 4 buckets, and it's going to be a big overview. So item number 1, The land use table had uses that were duplicative. There could have been like business office, other office. Why have two offices and only one is defined? So we went through the land use table and there were 4 of them. There was one for conservation district, one for suburban, one for urban, and one for everything else. So we're gonna take all of those tables and combine it into one land use table, because then we have one table to look at. It makes it easy for the public, for the development community, for staff. And we went ahead and we made sure that every use that was listed was clearly defined. And oftentimes, in the list of land uses, there were terms that were actually, it was defining what the land use was in the land use column, and it was duplicated in the definition. So we removed some of the clarifying terms on the land use table because it was already in the definition. And it was just confusing. So again, consolidating for an intuitive resource. Again, lots of time went into doing this. Lots of conversations were held with Administrator Kirk, with other staff members, with development community, just to understand the table and how it's being used. All right, so that's item number 1. Item number 2 is when we, throughout the code, we refer to, if you're doing a conservation development, please refer to table X. Well, we're getting rid of table X, so we have to then scrub the code to make sure everything is referring to this particular table. Then item number 3, because the town had a traditional neighborhood zoning district, and that was the precursor to the transect planning process that we're using now, that came out of the comp plan. And the town adopted suburban and urban districts, and that kind of replaced that traditional neighborhood district. And we've had the traditional neighborhood district for a while, and we don't have any properties that are zoned traditional neighborhood district. So it's time to just clean house and get rid of that zone district because we don't use it. Then the 4th bucket is there were a few little stragglers that we didn't get into the code at the beginning of the year when we were talking about the sign code and some other parts of the comp plan. One is buffering for natural areas, very light scrub, just making sure we could, view corridors. The definition of transect planning is provided, and then we just scrubbed accessory dwelling unit. I think there was like carriage house or even granny flat terminology might have been used in the code, and we just scrubbed that up. We're not changing the intent, we're not changing the ability to use it, we're just scrubbing up the terminology. And that is it.
I'm sorry, I came off like a jerk. I just wanted to.
Kidding.
I think we need to put code and staff stuff first in
There's
presentations.
actually 17 more slides behind these.
No, there are absolutely no more slides. There we go.
I'm giving Will a hard time now.
No, hey, I'm not getting any calls from you guys tonight, so at least this meeting is gonna end at 9:30. We can work it in. Questions?
No, just thanks for all your continued work on cleaning up our code. Really appreciate it.
I got questions. Did you have any?
Oh, I just had a comment. Could we get a key on the table just describing the zone districts kind of briefly?
Sure. So, and just one thing I want you to know is Berthoud has an amazing code. There is great information and wonderful allowances and clear direction in the code. It just needed to be rearranged a little bit. So, yes, so in the zone district table, in the proposed table, going down the left, and please tell me if I'm on the right direction.
Yeah.
On the left-hand side of the table, you have all of the uses, and they're categorized by residential, commercial, multi-use, industrial, and other.
An email earlier?
What?
Was this the table you sent out in an email earlier?
Yeah, it's the same table that's in your packet, but the table that went out didn't have any of the red lines. So the red lines represent the changes, And then across then, you will have everything going from the ag district all the way up to heavy industrial. And what zone districts those uses are allowed in, by what process. So you can either do it by just a building permit, you can do it by special use permit or site plan. And in some instances, like accessory dwelling units, there's another part of the code where you can go to get more information on that. And we've included that. Did I answer your question?
Well, I was just looking for a key right there, just describing the zone districts in the most brief terms to just add a little detail right there in the table and stuff. That was all I was asking.
Yeah, so preceding the table is actually in the code. It's exactly what you've asked for. It's already there.
Maybe I missed that.
And it may be that the way that these changes are organized in your packet, like if you look in I think what you're, Mayor Pro Tem Murphy, I think what you're suggesting is definitions for each of the zone districts right ahead of the table. Is that?
Just a quick descriptor, just added to the table, just for clarity.
Yeah,
That's
and there is a description of each zone district already in the code. And we're not proposing to change any of that. And so that's why you didn't see that. You're only seeing what we're proposing to change.
Yeah.
And there is a nice description of what is the ag zone district and what's appropriate. And there are those good descriptors already in the code. And after this meeting, if you want to we can walk through where it is to find it.
Oh, I'm just talking like actually in the development code, placing some definition to the table versus like having it elsewhere as well. Maybe it's just duplication is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think it would be a duplication, and the more information, if we try to define these in the table, I think that the table is going to be, really messy maybe.
I can live
But,
with that.
yeah, but if you know a good example, I'd be happy to look at it.
Okay, sure.
And I think it takes a special person to do what you do with this code. So it's like somebody, proofreading a phone book for those people who know what a phone book is. And just want to tell you how much we appreciate.
Yeah, no,
I mean, the laborious work you do, and it is. So thank you.
Well, it's a big team effort, and again, the town has great information. The planning department is so lucky to have the wonderful information. We're just scrubbing it to make it easier for us and easier for the public.
Other questions? Are you worried anything about the ADU, taking that out, granting and adding, anything with state funding coming down the road that's for ADUs?
No, and we're not taking the ADU, we're not removing accessory dwelling units. We're just saying that it doesn't mean that we're taking out the terminology living quarters mother-in-law suite.
Oh,
But
okay.
we still have ADU, we're just taking out that further descriptor
Okay.
because it's kind of an antiquated thing.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Why
Yeah,
just
but
your
we're
mother-in-law?
definitely leaving that in.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you. We can, I don't think we need to move, but we can,
See you at the second reading.
yeah, give direction to, are we cool with September 10th? All right, okay.
It's got dark in here.
Wait, what's
Thank you very much.
Second.
Got it. Thank you.
No, the screens went
Oh.
off. My tanning light went away.
Okay, let's move off into reports here. Let's start with Trustee Hardy.
Nothing to report, I don't think. Oh, except for the meeting on the housing was very interesting, very informative. I liked it. I think we're gonna have a pretty interesting team doing that. Had a great conversation with Chris about last meeting. I'd like to continue that conversation sometime. That'd be great, especially in this forum. And that's it. And yeah, like Brett said, the grass. I was noticing that too the other day when walking through Fickle even, and going over the new park and just going, God, makes I want to keep up with the Joneses. My lawn looks really bad. So yeah, kudos to the town park, and hopefully that'll carry over to the cemetery when we get all that done over there, and we'll have people compliment our cemetery as well. Anyway, that's all I've got, just some cool things. Oh, I did have one more comment. Are we gonna do a cleanup day for the fall at all?
I don't think we budgeted for a fall cleanup day this year, but I honestly can't remember. I'll have to ask Brian.
Okay. And then that kind of maybe, because I got a couple letters in my mailbox because I've been doing some yard work. But due to some health reasons, I wasn't able to keep up with them, but anyway. The weigh station, the transfer station, it's been closed for a while. Any chance we can look at reopening that again soon? Because they are gonna be relocating, I guess, the landfill further north eventually. And it'd be nice to have something closer for those of us that don't have large pickup trucks to take care of our tree branches and things like that.
Larimer County has no interest or intention in reopening the transfer station.
Is that something the town could take on and then partner with them in some way? Is it
So
something?
we are not
could
currently in the
facilitate?
solid waste business, and so I think that's a much bigger conversation. And managing a transfer station is much more complicated and regulated than it sounds.
Is it something we could contract with like SNS or Republic or?
Potentially. Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes, it's something we could do, but I think it's a fairly significant policy conversation about whether or not we want to get into solid waste.
Because I think that'd be a great place, not only for just local ability to do that, but also for our cleanup day where we used to bring tons of dumpsters to the junior high parking lot. That would just be a great.
I don't
place
think we'll
just-
ever do that again.
No, I miss it.
The
'cause
last
it's right-
time was pretty intense.
It was right across the street from my house. It was great. I could just
Yeah,
like go over there and, but anyway, I got to thinking about that transfer station again and just how much I do miss it because I don't like driving clear up to Fort Collins to have to drop off tree limbs. I mean, Loveland's got their own facility right there in town. I think it's something that maybe we should be looking more at here since we're growing so much as well. To try and get SNS or Republic or even Western or whatever, somebody that wants to take that on and.
Or just work with Loveland, try to get the branches to Loveland,
Or-
just do green waste or something.
I actually think you can take green waste there already.
You gotta pay a fee.
Yeah.
You gotta pay a fee unless you got a Loveland driver's license.
Yeah.
But you have to pay a fee to take it to the dump
Utility
too,
bill.
so.
Exactly.
It's something we
Except for
could
green waste, I guess.
partly look at in the sustainability plan
I think
too,
it's
I
good.
would say.
Yeah. Well, but anyway, that's something I was really kind of came to my attention recently again. So,
Good idea.
but
Yeah.
that's about it, I think.
Trustee Ayers?
My comments from the August port meeting were delayed until tonight, but I'm going to delay them again until our study session because some of them are gonna kind of be getting to the weeds.
Okay.
So, it's fine.
Trustee Kurtz?
Yeah, just, I guess, a quick announcement or plug. So, I think many of you know my daytime employment is with Northern Water, and they've been undergoing a pretty significant remodel of their campus. And so they are going to have a public open house on October 4th. So that's a Friday from 2 to 5 p.m. I'm being told staff is being asked to clean up their offices, but you will also not be able to get into the offices. So for those of you who thought you were going to TP my office, you probably aren't going to be able to. And as luck would have it, I think I'm actually going to be at a conference then, so I might not be there. But if I am in town, I will.
Do you know what
be there
time?
and Maybe try to show you some extra cool things. It starts at 2 o'clock, and 2 to 5, and there will be a little bit of an emphasis on the conservation gardens as well outside. So for those who want to learn about the native landscaping options for northern Colorado.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Wing?
Yeah, thanks for indulging me in all the questions I asked.
No,
Well, I
great
get
ones.
up to speed on a lot
They're
of
good
things, but I appreciate that, so.
All right, great. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, we had our tree advisory committee. I wanted to bring up some of the stuff we kind of talked about. Right now, we're kind of developing some calendars out of all the submissions we have from the schools for Arbor Day and stuff. So kind of working through what that looks like for our first round and how many we want to have printed and stuff. So they've really tackled that. We had some discussions on kind of the sidewalk trees downtown and how they're managed currently and how we don't have sufficient drift or space necessarily with our existing infrastructure. And, that's something I wonder if we can look at, especially talking about Third and Mass, having kind of a tree spec for like the actual bases for those that are going in the sidewalks. I'm not aware of any existing, but be worthwhile.
Street tree planting specifications?
Yeah, well, like for square footage of like rate or what we want to necessarily
Yeah,
do.
we don't have any downtown specification for sure.
Yeah, I think it'd be worthwhile to pursue that. That was kind of a discussion point. The other one we wanted to bring up is just a little bit of uncertainty about the trees that are existing in Town Park. Arborist Furnace is gonna do his best to manage those, and any kind of hazard that might be present with any of the cottonwoods. But going forth, another thing that came up was possibly having a contract stipulation as kind of a rider on projects going forth, if we are looking to preserve trees, to put a rider in saying there's some sort of financial penalty for damaging those trees. So if we could pursue that, that'd be ideal in the future.
You mean like
Try to
a
explore
homeowner or anyone?
Just a paragraph in our contracts.
Like
that
who damages it though? Like the developer?
The contractor.
Oh,
when they're
okay,
actually
gotcha.
developing.
You're talking about when we're building something.
Yeah, when the town
I
actually
got
is developing like the park, we're doing a project, if we want to preserve trees in that location, it'd be worthwhile to basically have a rider that we're gonna impose a financial penalty if those trees are damaged at the discretion of the arborist. I'd be interested in that certainly, going forth. Beyond that, let's see. The last thing I wanted to bring up, Administrator Kirk, you kind of brought it up. Just the status of the adaptive park and the money allocated for that. Can we just get a status update on where they're at, or have you talked to them?
Talked to the Farmstead developer who's constructing the park.
Or Mrs. Bowling, or?
I haven't spoken to Mrs. Bowling in a few months.
Okay.
The original schedule, the expectation was that the park would be largely complete in mid-2025. There is a 30-inch sewer line in the Farmstead development that requires state permitting once you get over a certain size. And that park ties into that 30-inch sewer line. There's some question just in the last week about whether or not the developer is going to move forward now or try to push that to a future phase.
Okay.
The biggest issue that we have with them rephasing the project is the park amenities being constructed in the early phases, and their non-potable irrigation system. The big things that they would push off into future phases are the roundabout construction at 56, because that is impacted by that 30-inch sewer line as well. And they obviously don't want to build it and then dig it up to put in a 30-inch sewer line once it's permitted. And the same is true with some of the improvements, the widening along County Line Road. And they also don't want to start now and then not be able to pave in the middle of winter, depending on the timing of when that line gets both permitted and is ready to be installed. So anyway, Ann and I have been going back and forth with the developer somewhat contentiously, I'd say, over the last week. And so some of that is still up in the air, if I could put it that way.
No, that's fine. If you could just keep us apprised on that. My concern, I guess, is budget creep and stuff on our end and stuff. So just, yeah, I appreciate the update.
Yep.
That's all I've got.
Great.
Well, I forgot to ask you, this just popped into my head. It's kind of a selfish thing. But the gated community at Huron Lakes keeps coming up. Are you waiting for them to come back, right? They have definitely a different opinion than the town.
Yep.
And is that sort of in their hands to move forward with whatever that is?
A little bit.
Okay.
There's been some back and forth on their on the license agreement and how they wanted to handle that. I think they did submit a draft to us that we're reviewing, so I don't know when that will come back to you, but it's going to be largely driven by them. The roads can stay open and ungated as long as it's no issue from our perspective.
Yeah. No,
it may be preferable. So anyway,
right. It's a topic, so
I'm
I'm
sure it
curious
is,
if there was
yeah.
any.
I understand that. Yeah.
And I voice the towns, what, they don't get it, and I say culturally, and, there's another side of the story, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, thanks.
Yeah, you're in a tight spot, and you do ask great questions. I just forget drinking from a fire hose. I remember doing that too, so those are really good questions. Your nephew did excellent.
Oh,
At the showing for that movie, I forget what it's called, the Native
Finding
Birth.
the Zone.
Thank you, yeah, so thanks for the invite. I have no reports.
Good.
So turn over to staff here.
I'm gonna try to be as quick as I can. So our rec center cleaning, largely went pretty well. The facility is back open, the pool is open. The pool opened a day late because when we went, we drain the pools, staff scrubs them. They're as clean as they've been since they were built. It looks fabulous. But then the pool heaters wouldn't fire back up, and so it took us a day to figure out why that wasn't. But the pool heaters are working, temperature's rising, so the aquatics facility's back up. We're still finalizing the gym floor repair. That gym floor was replaced at the contractor's cost as a warranty claim. It started to bubble and peel when it shouldn't have, and so, but that was a pretty significant undertaking. But all in all, parking lot was restriped, deep cleaning was done, the pool, some concrete was repaired on the slide tower, skylights were fixed, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens during that shutdown, so all in all, it was a big success.
Nice.
During the shutdown, there was also an active violence training that our awesome police chief, LCSO, Sheriff Sergeant, helped to organize for the rec center staff, had some participation from the fire district, but really to just kind of give everybody a much better idea of what to do in that scenario. The rec center, there's some really great updates in the board report that was included in your packet. If you haven't been able to get through all of it, I would recommend that you go through there. Every time I do, it just makes me really proud to be the town administrator, just the team at the town staff. And I think we talked about it with the parks, but the same is true with forestry and open space and streets and community development and town clerk's office. Everybody's just doing really awesome stuff. And it's just fun to get to go along for the ride. I'm gonna send out another email about the study session tour idea that we had. We do have 2 trustees that can't be there and 1 that may have a conflict, so it may be that we'll look for a different date, maybe the first week of October. October has 5 Tuesdays, so, you know, we would normally have, in a month where there's 5 Tuesdays, we'd have 2 meetings and 3 off weeks. So that's usually a good month to have a study session anyway, because, you know, you just kind of, you know, regular cadence of things, it's easy to fit in. So I'll send you an email about that. Please be on the lookout for it. And
When
let me
we
know-
have
and let me
3,
know.
then when are our meetings?
They're still always on the second and fourth Tuesday.
Oh, they are?
Always.
Okay,
Yeah, but if we have a 5th Tuesday, then there's an extra week where there's no meeting.
okay.
And then I'll be meeting with H&S on Thursday this week, if anybody's curious. We've brainstormed a lot of creative ideas to do some things that are less expensive, and actually I think could be significantly impactful from a community standpoint. That I'm really excited about. I don't know if they will be excited about our suggestions, but I'm excited to meet with them and kind of talk through it. So anyway, we'll hopefully be coming back to you in the next month or so with some updated ideas
Great.
about how to make that.
That was the idea,
How to
being
achieve
creative. So
everybody's goals.
they might
So-
not like it, but being creative, you know, I think that's part of it.
And to be honest, I'm not sure that the creativity would have been driven like it has been were it not for the request that they made. And so it's given us some reason to really dive in and come up with some, I think, really creative solutions. So anyway, just to let you know, we'll be meeting with them on Thursday. And that's it.
All right. Attorney Smith, anything?
I have nothing, Your
All
Honor.
right, Chief? Yeah, we got 2 minutes.
No, it's great to have the opportunity to go in and work with the rec center staff on that active violence training. So got to reinforce the training they had with the standard response protocol, and then help them learn the use of the tourniquets and the combat gauze in case there's any traumatic injuries that happen at their location. The other thing I want to talk with you guys about is October 5th. I sent you guys the invitation for the open house at the sheriff's office. It's going to run from 8 to 3:30 p.m. If you guys are available, please come that day. This gives you a great opportunity to see what the sheriff's office does and how we provide services to the town.
Would you mind sending that out again? Yeah, I saw that, but would that be okay?
Yeah, I'll send it out again.
Thank you so much.
That's all I had.
One question for you, and I don't know if this is statute law or when this changed, but in the police blotter, whatever that's called, the report, once upon a time, people's names were in those. what, did that change like decades ago or something? Where we actually, you don't put people's names on what they
The
did? I just,
previous chief made that change, I don't know.
I don't know if
that
it was
in the-
is reference to a statute or a law, but that they, at some point, chose not to
for
publish those names,
lawsuits,
so.
I was just curious, because back in the day, right, there was names
You
on
just
it.
said
Yeah,
a young male, 15, 18, whatever, Matt, Joseph Smith.
So,
I'm not aware of a law, and many communities still use names.
it's kind of a deterrent. Thank you.
Thank you.
We made it.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 9:29. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good job.
Nailed it.
Woo-hoo.
30 seconds to spare.
Discipline.